Belfast, a lovely end of the day, having peaked into the high 20s in places. Across a wide swathe of England and Wales, we're still in the high 20s going into the evening. Clear skies. A fresh feel, however. Humidity levels are generally dropping over the next few days. So, yeah, I think more comfortable conditions overnight for many of us. Clear spells for many as well, but we do have that low cloud in the east once again returning, and that will give a few spots of rain and drizzle first thing Friday. Temperatures typically around 13 to 16 Celsius. Then we start off Friday with that low cloud. I think it will affect northern Scotland a bit more compared with Thursday morning. Northern Ireland also prone to some of these low cloud patches. It tends to retreat back to the beaches, but you wouldn't rule out a few light showers into the northeast of Scotland and the odd shower bubbling up across the southwest peninsula. Otherwise, it's dry, sunny and very warm once again.
Expect warm spells with the odd rude interruption. Box Boilers sponsors the weather on GB News.
It's a Great British Giveaway Golden Summer Celebration. Your chance to win 2 fantastic prizes. There's an incredible £60,000 in tax-free cash. Plus, you'll also get your hands on a fine gold bar worth over £5,000. For a chance to win £60,000 in tax-free cash and a real gold bar, text GOLD to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message, or text BONUS to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entry starts at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB22 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 21st of August. This is a network giveaway. Entries will be pooled. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand.
Join me, Nana Akua, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation,
no,
because the failure is
you're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff.
Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood.
So join me on Jubes & Co. weeknights at 6 p.m. only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Welcome to Free Speech Nation with me, Josh Harwood. This is the show where each week we see what's happening in the world of culture, current affairs and politics.
First we'll say, welcome to the UK. Oh, thank you.
And we're not afraid to use our free speech so that you can use yours.
It's not controversial in the slightest to anyone who hasn't lost their mind.
Free Speech Nation, Sunday nights at 7 p.m. only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/yoursay. There you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/yoursay, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
Breaking news, live updates, stories that matter.
From the heart of the GB newsroom to every corner of Britain, with our team of dedicated journalists across the UK.
GB News bulletins are there to deliver the latest news that matters to you.
Bulletins on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Good afternoon, Britain. It's 12 o'clock on Thursday, the 16th of July. I'm Tom Harwood.
And I'm Emily Carver. Well, yes, after last night's devastating loss for England, will Argentina be sanctioned for parading a banner across the pitch declaring the Falklands belong to Argentina? Veterans are furious.
Elsewhere, residents living near a migrant camp in Crowborough say they're taking security into their own hands, spending thousands on cameras, fencing and community patrols. We're on the ground live as local people fight back.
Andy Burnham's government in waiting has reportedly descended into chaos as he dithers and delays over whether to appoint Ed Miliband or Shabana Mahmood as his chancellor.
And in his first interview in 2 weeks, Andy Burnham refused to rule out a wealth tax, saying the state of public finances may require people to pay a little more.
Just a little bit more. Anyway, speaking of Mr. Burnham, he's facing backlash for refusing to speak to any journalists for 2 weeks and instead going on Gary Lineker's podcast, a former footballer who left the BBC following anti-Semitism allegations.
She was a kind and generous human being, and we are all so devastated that she has been taken from us. Now let's reflect on Anne's remarkable life.
Well, the former Prime Minister Liz Truss fought back tears as she led tributes to Anne Widdecombe at the Conservative Political Action Conference in London today. We're there live.
Goodbye.
Yes, remember Labour MPs gave Starmer a standing ovation yesterday as he left his last PMQs. But why on earth are they applauding a leader they've just spent months knifing in the back? Is this the worst of two-faced politics?
Well, some breaking news to bring you right off the bat. Well, Downing Street has backed a minister's call for FIFA to investigate whether Argentinian players broke rules by waving a banner in support of their country's claims over our Falkland Islands, saying the World Cup might not be ours, but the Falkland Islands definitely are.
I mean, watching that match last night, the argy-bargy of the Argentinians was just crazy.
I genuinely didn't know if I was watching football, rugby, American football, WWE, wrestling. I mean, it was nuts. But apparently all the South American teams behave like this.
I mean, speaking to my parents, they've always been like this, Emily. They've always been like this, these dirty tactics. But anyway, this banner, Los Malvinas son Argentinos, I think it is in the language there.
Yeah.
Yes, it does look like they might get a hefty fine, but I presume the team will be able to afford it.
Well, they'll be able to afford that fine, sure. They won't be able to afford fighting for the Falkland Islands. They don't have a navy.
Yeah, small problem there.
Well, this is the thing. Argentina's been a basket case economically. Ever since we beat them in 1982, they haven't rebuilt militarily. They've had several sovereign debt defaults. I mean, they can do these performative gestures because it doesn't actually mean anything, because they're not going to be able to take back the Falkland Islands. They're a country that's frankly bankrupt.
Well, I mean, there was a local England team, local fans who weren't allowed to bring their flag into the stadium for our match against Croatia. I think that was the first one, because it had a little tiny submarine in the corner.
God.
But this is allowed.
And of course, the big row over poppies.
Yeah.
Whether our players are actually allowed to wear poppies to honour veterans, and FIFA getting into a huge tiz over that. And yet, have we heard a single thing from FIFA about their darling player Messi and his friends?
Well, here you go. Downing Street have said that they're going to back these investigations, so we'll see what happens there.
It does seem like FIFA is just the most corrupt organisation on the face of the planet.
I think that's fair to say. Should we get to the headlines?
Thank you both, and good afternoon to you. Just after midday, well, we'll start with a recap of that breaking news. We just heard there that Downing Street has now backed calls for FIFA to investigate Argentina's players after they held up a banner supporting their country's claim to the Falkland Islands. It came after England's World Cup dream ended last night in a 2-1 semi-final defeat. Tributes have been pouring in, though, for the Three Lions tournament run, with the Prince of Wales saying he was gutted but proud. Sir Keir Starmer, meanwhile, praised the team's passion, their energy and fight. It means Argentina will now face Spain in Sunday's final. Well, Shadow Minister Andrew Griffith told us this morning that Argentina's players were wrong for their action and said that politics should be kept separate from football.
FIFA in the past have fined Britain for wearing poppies on their shirts. They've suspended Spanish players when they called for Gibraltar to be part of Spain. So action this day from FIFA, whether it's fines or suspensions. This cannot wait until the end of the tournament. It is incredibly important that they send that signal that this behaviour was unacceptable. Fair enough, unfortunately, we lost tonight, but democracy and self-determination can't be the losers.
Also breaking this hour, 2 young hackers have been jailed after a major cyber attack on Transport for London, which forced the organisation to pull the plug on its own systems. 18-year-old Owen Flowers and 20-year-old Thala Jabbar carried out what prosecutors have called an extremely serious hack on TfL's online network. The attack forced more than 27,000 employees to attend an office in person to reset their passwords, while Oyster refund data was accessed and contactless systems were delayed. The court heard that the pair reached the highest level of access in the system, described as the keys to the kingdom, and could have caused catastrophic damage. More than half of people in the UK are worried about the government tracking them through digital ID, according to a new survey. 61% of people are concerned that where and when a digital ID is used could be monitored. The plans were originally designed to make digital ID a requirement for proving the right to work, with possible use for government services. Campaigners, though, are now urging the Prime Minister to reset the policy and focus on privacy protections before any wider rollout. Ministers are promising to take every action necessary to protect children in nurseries after recent abuse and neglect cases. Children's safety in early years settings has come under increasing scrutiny after several high-profile court cases involving nursery workers. The government plans to strengthen safeguarding standards and make staff supervision more frequent, as well as ensuring that children are more actively supervised in vulnerable areas. It will also publish free safeguarding training and guidance for parents on how to raise concerns. And employers could soon be forced to publish salary information in their job adverts under government plans to rewrite anti-discrimination rules. The proposals could require companies to show an exact salary, a pay range or a benchmark rate for open roles. Employers who do not publish adverts would have to give candidates the information in writing before an interview. Ministers say the changes would help job seekers avoid roles with mismatched pay expectations and make hiring fairer. Got there in the end. Those are the midday headlines. See you soon.
Good afternoon, Britain. It's 8 minutes past 2. And of course, it was a heartbreaking night for England as the Three Lions were knocked out of the World Cup by defending champions Argentina.
Yeah, England were 5 minutes away from a World Cup final, but conceded 2 late goals, meaning England's 60-year wait for the silverware continues.
Well, there was controversy following the final whistle as the Argentine players held up a banner which translates to "The Falklands are Argentinian," breaking FIFA's rule, strict rule, might I add, on political slogans.
Oh, but Downing Street are now getting involved, and they're saying they're backing calls to investigate the Argentinian players here, and they want some kind of punishment. So we'll see what happens there.
Well, let's go straight to Downing Street and find out more with our political editor, Christopher Hope. Christopher, what have we heard? Oh, I think we're just establishing our connection there to Downing Street. It's not a million miles away from where we are, but, you know, sometimes these connections can be tricky. There he is, Christopher Hope.
Sorry about that, yeah, Tom and Emily. That's right. Well, it is all go here in Downing Street with all the journalists getting ready for the coronation of Andy Burnham on Monday. But here we're hearing more from Sir Keir Starmer. He appears to be cutting loose in his final hours as Prime Minister, making clear his concern about what happened last night on the football pitch after the England-Argentina game. Number 10 says this: it echoes remarks from Peter Kyle, the business secretary, saying that potential action over this political gesture by the Argentina players is a matter for FIFA, and that obviously it could see it being referred and taken further, maybe some action against those players, although they do say it's been a fantastic World Cup. On the issue of that political statement, Number 10 is very clear. They say this: the World Cup might not be ours, but the Falkland Islands are. And then ahead of the final on Sunday between Spain and Argentina, Sir Keir Starmer's spokesman says this: the PM wishes both teams well in the final, particularly Spain.
Punchy statement from Downing Street. Beyond all of the sort of silliness and the football and the chest beating and the peacocking and the whether or not everyone was behaving precisely by the rules, is there actual political jeopardy here? I mean, we have seen Argentinian government ministers speak about the Falklands in no uncertain terms. Is this a bit of football on the pitch banter, or is this deeper?
I think it certainly hurts this morning. I think a lot of England fans are feeling that the way the Argentina players behaved after the final whistle was outrageous and appalling and deeply disrespectful, and showed how they are basically bad winners, frankly, for so many supporters. And I think Number 10 is buying into that and supporting that appears to be leading towards that interpretation. The Prime Minister is now in Ukraine. We should be hearing from him later. It's his final act in office is to go to Ukraine. He watched the game last night on the train crossing the border from Poland into Ukraine. He's met with Volodymyr Zelensky, the Ukrainian president, talked about the ongoing support for Ukraine by the UK, maybe carrying some message from Andy Burnham. We don't know that, but certainly it was an indication of one of the top ways he wants his premiership to be marked for Keir Starmer is that building that coalition of the willing and that support for Ukraine. There has been just time today, by the way, while I've got to you, for a final U-turn by this government. A government of many U-turns, of course, over the past 2 years. They have now backtracked on plans to withdraw payments, £11 an hour for the Coast Guard volunteers when they drop everything and go and save lives on the coast. They were going to go towards an expenses model. That's been dropped. They'll go back to and they'll carry on paying them £11 an hour. So a final U-turn by this Labour government.
And Chris, Keir Starmer, with his 50th foreign trip since being in office for just two years, I mean, do you suspect he's going off there to sort of, I don't know, try and secure a future job, perhaps at NATO or the UN or some other kind of international organisation?
Emily, a great question. We're told he's going to carry on being an MP until the election. Of course, he may stand down after that. He may well try and seek some form of international role. He has friends in the European Union. They call him Dear Keir. He has friends in NATO too. He knows them, Mark Rutte, very well there. And normally, though, that NATO role is quite hard to go to one of the big supporters of NATO. The French normally veto any UK involvement in getting that role. The last UK head of NATO was George Robertson back in 1997 to 1999, so a long time ago. But it could happen. I wouldn't hold your breath. Normally it goes to one of the minor countries who all the big countries agree on.
Okay, well, thank you very much indeed. Christopher Hope there outside Downing Street. I guess we can let the Argentinians just shout a bit. It's not going to change anything, is it?
Here's the thing. When you've got youth unemployment as high as it is in Argentina, when you've had inflation in triple figures, when you've had such difficulties, I mean, football's all they have. I like to think that we have some other things going on in our lives.
I bet, yeah.
You see the sort of victory parades down the centre of the cities and all the rest of it, and it's like, yeah, of course they can do big victory parades. None of these people have jobs. I mean, that's literally all they have in their lives is football. Well, I like to think that in Britain we've got some other things to celebrate as well.
Well, I still wish we'd won the match last night. Devastating. Anyway, we want to speak to someone from the SNP because Lara Bird, who is one of their newest MPs, who I think was accused of crossing her fingers when she took the oath in Parliament when she became an MP. Here she is on Twitter celebrating England's loss to Argentina.
Oof, and she's with a Labour MP as well there.
And she's with a Labour Scottish MP there too. I don't
is this
like
all
how that
friendly
looks.
banter, or is this a bit of a gut punch?
Well, she's also been accused of changing her accent here and there, hasn't she? Going from a posh English accent to a Scottish accent and then back again.
Well, she's lived the last decade in London and she is half English.
So she quite likes England then, does she?
Who knows? Well, Nicola Sturgeon's moved to London, hasn't she? Anyway, former SNP Glasgow City Councillor Austin Sheridan can join us now. Austin, is this all a bit of good humour, or is it a little bit nasty?
No, it's all good humour. I mean, historically, Scotland and England have been historic rivals. So, for example, in Glasgow, I'm a supporter of Glasgow Celtic Football Club. If Celtic were knocked out of the Scottish Premier League, which is unlikely these days because we perform so well, it's unlikely that I'm going to support Rangers. And if people said to me, because you don't support Glasgow Rangers, you're anti-Glaswegian, that would just be preposterous. So, no, it's just banter. England have played incredibly well. I think we all recognise that people in England will be disappointed with the result.
It's not just banter, though.
Just
there
banter.
are nationalists up in Scotland who absolutely hate England. Come on, I know some of them absolutely hate England, and that's why they're willing to support any other team besides England. You know that to be true.
See, I don't accept that to be the case, because there's unionists in Scotland who were supporting Argentina last night because of the football rivalry. Yeah, I mean, you can't mix up politics and football in such a manner to say that.
But she was talking about cross-party cooperation. That was the joke, so it is party political.
With a unionist MP. I mean, that MP that she's standing next to is a unionist.
Do you think it's a bit distasteful, though? It's a bit silly, is it not? At the very least, Austin?
Well, I was in the pub last night watching the game. There were some people from England in the pub who were supporting England. There were actually, in fact, some Scottish people in the pub who were supporting England as well. So it isn't the case, obviously, that all Scots were supporting Argentina last night. There were some Scots who were supporting England, and the banter was great last night. We celebrated their win. I've got a bit of a hangover today, I'm not going to lie, because it turned into a celebration. But it was just banter. And at the end of the day, you know, England played incredibly well. I think they should be proud of their achievement. But yeah, there's always going to be the Scotland-England rivalry. It's here to stay, and I think we should embrace it and have a bit of banter.
OK, Austin Sheridan, former SNP Glasgow City Councillor, thanks indeed for joining us.
I'd agree if it was always only about the football, but we know that not to be true. Anyway, GBNews' Patrick Christie's is in Crowborough today because he's speaking to residents living near a migrant camp.
Yes, residents say they're taking security into their own hands, spending thousands on cameras, fencing and community patrols. OK,
Patrick Christie's is there for us now. Patrick, how are people feeling there?
Yes, absolutely. Look, thank you very, very much. So I am in Crowborough at the moment. As you can see, it's quite an idyllic setting, isn't it? We've got the kids' play area there. We've got the village cricket green all around here. Just behind me over there, there's a little coffee shop, etc. But the reason why we're here is that there is now a camp full of illegal migrants, roughly about 500 of them, who are allowed to roam free around this area. And it's not the only area where this is happening. In fact, in the last week, the government has announced that they are going to open more of these camps at former military barracks, including little towns and villages in rural England that have only got a population of around 180 people, in the case of one near Bicester. I'm joined here now by Sarah Jory, who is a Reform councillor. Thank you so much for joining us here. Look, it's such a lovely area, this. You know, you do see the flags on some of the lampposts, and it feels like you're in a quintessentially English or British place. What's your fear, do you think, about what could happen to this area?
Yeah, so Patrick, I've lived here for a long time, about 35 years, and it's always been a quiet town, a peaceful town. Nobody had ever heard of it before. There was hardly ever any police here. People felt safe to walk everywhere at night and so on. That's all changed, and it's changed for a variety of reasons. So the camp is there, and yes, there are fears with regard to people from the camp potentially. You know, they're clearly not all bad, but there could be things that could happen. But aside from that, it's also around. God, I forgot my.
That's all right. Don't worry. I mean, I think you were mentioning about potential safety of people as well. I know that One of the things you were mentioning was that there's a particular park as well, I think, where there have been a few issues.
Yes. So that's my understanding. I've only heard this from other people. So we do obviously talk to a lot of people, being councillors, and that's my understanding, that there have been people actually led up from the camp to the park, which is a park where children play, similar to this. And with the school holidays coming on, clearly that's something that we're all fearful of. Yeah. The other thing is as well at the moment. So there's the 100-year celebrations for Winnie the Pooh up on Ashdown Forest. That's another place where people safely, I used to walk up there myself quite safely. I wouldn't go up there now because, again, we understand that there have been people from the camp taken up there. These are the sort of things that...
It's interesting that you say that, and actually I must say that Sarah's not the only person who's told that to us since we've been here. Now, that specific park, we wanted to go and film it because we keep being told that this is where they congregate, they're being led. And the council blocked us from filming in that park. So I'm going to go and check it out myself a bit later on without the camera because I want to be able to verify things myself. But that is quite telling, isn't it, that the council decided that of all the places around here, we couldn't film in the one place that people keep telling us is where all the problems is. Read into that what you will. And just very quickly, you were mentioning about how just the very presence of the camp has actually created quite a lot of division just amongst locals in the area that didn't really exist before.
Yes, absolutely. It was a sort of place where everybody helped one another. We're very high up, so there's a lot of snow. People would help one another out in those situations during COVID and so on. But now, during the election campaign, this really came out as well. So, some of the abuse that was shouted in the street, unheard of for Crowborough to actually hear that. People would come up to us and lecture us, and that sort of thing, and they felt free to say horrible things. That's not Crowborough. That's not the people of Crowborough that I know.
And it's interesting, isn't it, there that kind of division simply did not exist before government policy, and that it appears to be coming from people who are not necessarily the ones who are actually protesting against this particular camp that's here now. Look, Sarah, thank you so much for your time today. Really appreciate it. I'm going to throw it back to you guys in the studio now, but just a reminder, I'm going to be doing my show live here from Crowborough at 9 to 11 p.m. tonight.
Well, Patrick, thanks indeed for being there for us. And yeah, really interested to find out what you sniff out on the ground. Fascinating that you haven't been allowed your cameras near that park. Fascinating. Well, we'll catch up with you a bit later. Cheers.
Yes, I wonder why that was. Let's speak to political commentator Aisha Ali Khan in the studio, because this is the reality, isn't it? Small, tight-knit local communities not really being told what's going on until it happens. The Home Office plonks hundreds of migrants from, all around the world into one specific area and hopes for the best.
So, Emily, obviously the locals, as we have been seeing since January, have been up in arms because they feel that they weren't consulted. It was something that was imposed on them. And obviously we saw Patrick standing in a sort of very lovely green area where children will be playing, given the holidays are coming up. But I do feel that this policy was announced, the shutting down of the migrant hotels. So that was a policy that was basically inherited from the Conservatives. And it was costing the UK taxpayer £9 million a day. So this is something that the Labour Party were really keen to find an opposite solution.
But apparently this barracks is going to cost more per night, actually, because of various reasons, security and the like.
So the difference is going to be that money that we own as a British government, we own the sites, the military sites. So there won't be any question of paying companies that have made millions from the back of this crisis. You've got companies, you've got normal landlords who've become multimillionaires.
But there are a whole host of statutory obligations that this country signed up to over the course of the last 25 years that mean that really we have to gold plate accommodation in this country in a way that other countries make do with sort of tents. That's illegal here. It's why we've had to procure hotels. It's why it's quite so expensive to not just use a currently extant military base, but actually upgrade it, make sure there's leisure facilities there, make sure that the quality of living is actually, for these migrants, in many cases, better than we give our own armed forces personnel. I mean, this seems to be what really gets the goat of many people.
So I have worked on a military base, a former military base in Harrogate. It's turned into a school now. And it's not this luxury, it's this idea of it being plush and luxury. It's not. And of course, we're looking for a solution whilst we deport people that are not supposed to be here. And since obviously the Labour Party have been in power coming up to 2 years now, well, over 2 years, we've deported nearly 70,000 people.
Very few of them have been small boat migrants. The people that have been deported are visa overstayers who've agreed to voluntarily leave the country. The proportion of people who've been sent back who came across by small boat is in the single digits in terms of percentages.
Well, this is something that we're definitely working on, and having people, I mean, we can't just, I mean, we've seen what happens in France if you have tents everywhere. We've seen the Calais jungle. It's horrific, the human rights abuses that are happening. These people are already vulnerable. There's been so many reported documented rapes of children, of men in situations like this. So the fact that we have, you know, we provide accommodation, adequate accommodation to people whilst they're being processed, while the applications are being processed. I mean, we're a westernised country, we're a civilised country. This is the kind of thing that we have to do. And
yes, but unfortunately, as we've seen, well documented. I mean, yesterday we were just reporting on the sentencing of 3 disgusting men, 2 from Egypt, I believe, and 1 from Iran, who decided to gang rape a woman who was enjoying a night on Brighton Beach. Just horrendous. They were staying in a local asylum hotel. I mean, what people do want is for people to be deported if they arrive in this country illegally. But Aisha, thank you very much indeed. A Wealdon District Council spokesperson has said Wealdon District Council understands that the situation at Crowborough Army Camp has caused concern and uncertainty for many residents. However, the council does not accept that it has failed to engage with residents.
They continue. Since the Home Office announced the plans to use the camp, the council has remained actively involved, seeking further information and clarity on behalf of residents and ensuring local views and concerns are represented.
A Home Office spokesperson has said the safety of local communities is central to our immigration reforms, which is why asylum seekers are routinely screened against policing, criminality and immigration databases before they are permitted to move into sites.
They continue. We're closing every asylum hotel and moving asylum seekers into basic accommodation, including ex-military sites. 5 former military sites are being explored to house asylum seekers.
I will just also say that the government have put out today that nearly 1,100 migrants have been returned to France since the launch of the government's one-in, one-out deal. So we'll get some more information on that one.
But for every single migrant that has been returned to France, one has been picked up from France and brought to the United Kingdom.
And we've had previously people return to France, just try again.
One in, one out, one in, it should be called. Anyway, this is Good Afternoon Britain on GB News. Lots more still to come.
If you want to work, earn good money and have a good life, you need to go to the UK. They don't deport anyone. Yes, those are the words of a so-called travel agency in Iraq. We'll discuss.
But after the break, yes, it's Andy Burnham. He's facing backlash for refusing to speak to any journalists for 2 weeks and instead breaking his silence not with journalists, but on Gary Lineker's podcast. Of course, the former footballer who left the BBC following allegations of anti-Semitism.
Yes, all of that and more to come. Your GB News, Britain's #1 news channel.
Exciting news. Every Friday, my Patrick Christie's Tonight Show is going to have a twist to it. We're welcoming some special guests. You. That's right, on Fridays I'm going to be doing my show in front of a live studio audience because this show is about you and what you have to say. It's going to be the same big debates, same big topics, same big opinions, but every Friday night at 9 p.m. you are invited to come on down to Patrick Christie's Tonight to be a part of the action. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
5 hosts, 5 opinions, 5 fearless debates, 5 unfiltered takes on the day's news.
5 reasons not to be anywhere else on Saturday night.
This is the Saturday 5. You got me good there. Britain's biggest Saturday night TV show.
It's not a bad brand.
Yeah. Uncensored.
Very, very racy tonight.
On the unpredictable.
What did she say? Can you translate it for us?
And always entertaining.
And how can a country go from being led by William Wallace Saturday nights from 6 p.m. only on GB News, the People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
You're going to want to stay tuned, trust me.
Welcome to Free Speech Nation with me, Josh Harwood. This is the show where each week we see what's happening in the world of culture, current affairs and politics.
First we'll say, welcome to the UK. Oh, thank you.
And we're not afraid to use our free speech so that you can use yours.
It's not controversial in the slightest to anyone who hasn't lost their mind.
Free Speech Nation, Sunday nights at 7 p.m. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
As soon as it hits 11 and the headlines come in,
The late edition brings you the breaking news from all the front pages.
because the news is going to happen.
So get a head start today.
Patrick Christie's tonight, late edition.
Alex Armstrong tonight, late edition. From 11 o'clock every night.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
You want to know what's really going on in the corridors of power?
Labour don't know what to do with you half the time, and that makes you quite lethal in the chamber.
Get behind the headlines with Chopper's political podcast. Join me, Christopher Hope, as I sit down with the great and the good of British politics.
We'll see where this ruling takes us.
These are the stories shaping our nation. Chopper's political podcast, available now on all platforms. Listen in and stay ahead.
Here at GB News, we made a promise to tell your stories.
And on the 6th of August, we're marking 5 years of doing exactly that.
Celebrate with us by having your say. Join in the debates live on TV and radio.
And meeting your favourite presenters across the country, from Leeds to Aberdeen, from Belfast to Barry Island.
Plus, join me in Essex for our biggest live show of the year. Scan the QR code or visit gbnews.com/celebrate. Terms and conditions apply.
Good afternoon, Britain. It's now 12:30. Now, yesterday, the House of Commons was full of fulsome tributes to the outgoing Prime Minister, Sir Keir Starmer.
Goodbye.
Yes, I think yesterday I called it vomit-inducing. It's interesting, given that the MPs giving Sir Keir a standing ovation were the same MPs who drove him out of office, as Winston Churchill said about the House of Commons. The opposition occupies the benches in front of you, but the enemy sits behind you.
Well, let's speak to the journalist and author Stephen Pollard on both this and frankly, on the potential of our next Prime Minister. But firstly, Stephen, the idea that the 400-odd MPs sitting behind Keir Starmer had been plotting and scheming for the last 12 months to boot him out of office and then stand up and clap him. I mean, what's going on there?
I mean, you know, is anyone surprised that politicians are hypocrites? I mean, it's not exactly the greatest breaking news story ever, is it? But it's pretty spectacular. I mean, it'd be one thing to, you know, say he says goodbye and then they say cheerio and so on. But the idea, I mean, one of the MPs, Caroline Harris, before her last, before she asked the last question, she was literally, she said before the Commons, I think I can do this. About to break in tears. Now, she's a family friend of the Starmers, so she had some sort of excuse at least. But most of them, I mean, literally, you know, days before, for months before, they've been doing nothing except tell anyone who'll listen how awful Starmer is, how desperate they were to get rid of him. And then to give him that kind of standing ovation, it's just utterly two-faced, which, as I say, not that anyone should be surprised by that.
Yeah, I mean, it's one thing Keir Starmer sugarcoating his legacy, saying Britain's in a better place than when he became Prime Minister. It's quite another thing for all these two-faced MPs to start crying and saying how much they admire him. But let's go to Andy Burnham, because he is the Prime Minister in waiting, and he's received quite a bit of backlash, hasn't he, after he failed to challenge Gary Lineker's description of the conflict in Gaza as a genocide on his YouTube channel Goalhanger.
Yes, I mean, I think
we're just going to take. Sorry, Stephen. We'll just have a little look at the clip just to refresh our minds. Or no, we're not. Well, yes. So Andy Burnham appeared on Gary Lineker's
can we just double
podcast.
check? Do we have this clip? We'll get it up now.
Anyway, he appeared on Gary Lineker's podcast, which was an interesting choice anyway, because, of course, Stephen, Gary Lineker left the BBC following quite a few
I'm being told we do have the clip now. Let's have a listen.
OK.
The ongoing genocide, I think, in Gaza and what's happening in Lebanon as well. What's your thoughts on
how are you going to cope with that, and how are you going to deal with that situation?
Well, I did address Gaza directly last week, and I recognised that Labour got it wrong. I mean, obviously, the attacks of October the 7th were horrendous, but at the same time, I looked then at what happened in the aftermath and has carried on happening, and it's possible to criticise both things rather than just pick a side.
Right, OK, well there, Stephen, no pushback on the use of the word genocide. And also, just the fact that he appeared on Gary Linne's podcast, rather than speaking to serious journalists, as you might call it, a former footballer who left the BBC following allegations of anti-Semitism. What are we to make of that, Stephen?
I think it's worse even than that. It's not, yes, he didn't push back on the word genocide. I think that's disgraceful, and he should have done. And yes, Lineker's not a serious journalist. But for me, the issue isn't that. The issue is that Lineker should be toxic. Let's remember that the straw that broke the camel's back, the final reason that did for him at the BBC, was when he shared a video which compared Jews with rats. Now, imagine if he'd shown a video that said, all Muslims are terrorists, or, all black people are monkeys. The guy would never be taken seriously by anyone. He'd be toxic. And yet, to say that Jews are equivalent to rats, somehow it's as if it never happened. Now, Lineker apologised. He said he didn't realise that that was anti-Semitic. But, I mean, what kind of idiot do you have to be to accept that kind of apology? The idea that you compare anyone with a rat is clearly obvious what you actually mean by that. Jews and rats is a particular comparison that was one of the favoured choices of the Nazis. So the idea that Gary Lineker, of all people, should be Andy Burnham's second choice or first choice as interviewer. Last week he put out a video which was just him talking without even having a non-journalist like Lineker challenging him. This time he's gone to Lineker. I mean, who is he going to have next? Is he going to have, Michael McIntyre or somebody as his tough interviewer? I mean, it's pretty depressing as a prospect. And then, of course, the Commons is now in recess. So he's not going to be questioned in any way until September. That doesn't mean he's not going to be taking decisions. It doesn't mean he's not going to be implementing his policies, which not only was he not elected on, but that he hasn't even had a leadership contest on.
It's been 2 weeks since a journalist, by any description, has managed to ask him a question. And that was Andrew Marr, who is a fine journalist. But, of course, let's not forget that when Labour got in 2 years ago, he appeared on the BBC's Question Time programme to say that isn't it going to be wonderful, just the peace and the quiet and the tranquility and government getting on in a good way. I think we know which side of the fence he sits on. It is, frankly, bizarre that we are having a new Prime Minister, confirmed as Labour Party leader tomorrow, confirmed as Prime Minister on Monday, and we will have to wait months before there is political or journalistic scrutiny of him.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's the political scrutiny that really bothers me more. That we're all journalists, so of course we think there should be journalistic scrutiny, as indeed there should be. But that's, it's not a constitutional outrage that there's no journalistic scrutiny, but it is a constitutional outrage that there's no political scrutiny of any kind whatsoever. And it's deliberate. The idea that it's just, a product of the timetable is ridiculous. The Conservatives put down an amendment to delay recess by 1 day, which could so easily have been done just to allow him to face some kind of scrutiny. And they've avoided it quite deliberately. And I think it speaks very ill of what we can look forward to in the future.
Yeah, it might be technically allowed, but it doesn't make it less appalling or seem less undemocratic. Thank you very much indeed. Really appreciate your time. Stephen Pollard there on this issue. Andy Burnham has never called Gaza a genocide himself, but has said there was increasing evidence of war crimes, and it's for the international courts to make that ruling.
Well, this is Good Afternoon Britain on GB News. Lots more still to come.
She was a kind and generous human being, and we are all so devastated that she has been taken from us. Now let's reflect on Anne's remarkable life.
Well, yes, the former Prime Minister Liz Truss fought back tears as she led tributes to Anne Widdecombe at the Conservative Political Action Conference in London today. We'll be there live.
All of that and indeed more to come. You're with GB News, Britain's #1 news channel.
Hello and welcome to the latest update from the Met Office for GB News. Another widely sunny and dry day for the vast majority of the United Kingdom. Very warm, if not hot in places. Some cloud in the northeast. Now that's been creeping inland overnight. It will burn back to the coast of eastern Scotland, northeast England through the day, leaving plenty of sunshine with high pressure in control across the United Kingdom. And you can see the widespread sunshine there for most of inland UK, but northern and eastern Scotland, eastern England prone to some of that low cloud persisting around beaches. A fresh breeze coming in from the east, so temperatures at around the mid-20s, I think, on the east coast, but inland, high 20s fairly widely, up to 30 Celsius in one or two spots. Outside chance of a shower reaching the far southwest, otherwise it's simply dry and fine for the vast majority, and you can see some of that patchy cloud affecting eastern Scotland as we go into the evening. Best of the sunshine towards the west. Northern Ireland, 25 degrees for Belfast, a lovely end of the day, having peaked into the high 20s in places. Across a wide swathe of England and Wales, we're still in the high 20s going into the evening. Clear skies. A fresh feel, however. Humidity levels are generally dropping over the next few days. So, yeah, I think more comfortable conditions overnight for many of us. Clear spells for many as well. But we do have that low cloud in the east once again returning. And that will give a few spots of rain and drizzle first thing Friday. Temperatures typically around 13 to 16 Celsius. Then we start off Friday with that low cloud. I think it will affect northern Scotland a bit more compared with Thursday morning. Northern Ireland also prone to some of these low cloud patches. It tends to retreat back to the beaches, but you wouldn't rule out a few light showers into the northeast of Scotland and the odd shower bubbling up across the southwest peninsula. Otherwise, it's dry, sunny and very warm once again.
Thank you, Britain, for the thousands of you who are becoming friends of GB News every week.
You're not only watching and listening to our programmes, you're becoming part of them too.
Good afternoon, this is the latest AI travel news from gbnews.com. The A264 westbound is closed after the M23 at Pease Pottage. The A27 westbound is closed after the A280. The A272 is closed after junction 9. The M5 southbound has lane closures between junctions 11A and 12 in Gloucester. The A5 northbound is closed after the A422 in Northamptonshire. In Scotland, the M80 northbound has lane restrictions and queues between junction 2 at Robroyston and junction 3 at Hornshill. And on the trains, Chiltern Railway services between Birmingham Snow Hill and Leamington Spa are disrupted, while East Midlands Railway services are affected by hot weather. For more travel news, go to gbnews.com.
Good afternoon, Britain. It's just gone 20 to 1. Now, Liz Truss, the former Prime Minister, is leading the first British-hosted Conservative Political Action Conference in London.
Yes, the former Prime Minister was visibly emotional as she paid tribute to the murdered politician Anne Widdecombe.
He was a kind and generous human being, and we are all so devastated that she has been taken from us. Now let's reflect on Anne's remarkable life.
Yes, very moving tribute there. Should we speak to GB News national reporter Will Godley, who's at the conference for us? Will, I imagine that was very moving for those who were in the room.
Yeah, it certainly was, and started the conference today. This is a three-day conference, and it's a conference that has been going on in America for nearly 50 years, but the first time CPAC has come to the UK. And I can speak now to one of the speakers, Ian Paisley Jr., former DP MP. Why are you here today? Why have you wanted to support this event?
Well, first of all, it's wonderful that CPAC has come to the United Kingdom, and I must congratulate Liz Truss and Matt Slapp for having the vision to do that. Why am I here? Look, the United Kingdom is made up of Great Britain and Northern Ireland. It's very, very important that all of those on the right get their act together, come together, galvanise support, and support each other. The left supports each other, the radicals support each other. I think it's important that those of us who are on the conservative and centre right, that we make sure that we are supported and galvanised, and that we are speaking, not necessarily with one voice, but with a consistent voice in the same direction. Because Britain is in serious trouble, it's in debt, It's got major problems it needs to address in terms of security, and we need to make sure that we have a new government in the future that fixes the problems.
I'm sure the Labour Party and the Green Party would say they don't support each other, but why do you think the right is, in your words, fractured? Why do you think it's not come together?
Well, I will push back on that. I think that whenever there's a Conservative or something on the right or a policy on the right that comes under attack, we see a pile-on. We see a pile-on from the Greens, we see a pile-on from the Liberals, we see a pile-on from Labour, and therefore I think it is essential that actually we on the right stand together and support each other, and I think that is essential, and that's what's happened to Britain. Britain isn't finished. Britain isn't a basket case, but there's corrosion there, and we need to make sure that is fixed, and we need an essential reset in our politics, but most importantly of all, a reset in our confidence. We need to be confident about being British. We need to absolutely be enthusiastic about being British and unashamed of our history and unashamed of our identity, because at the moment those things are being eroded. So as to be British, well, you have to be ashamed about that. I'm not ashamed of being a Brit and never will be.
What's stopping the right come together then, in your words?
Well, I think there's always been, I think there's a major change in the power block and in the politics of the United Kingdom anyway, and I think that we've seen this across the world where it's been taken too easily for granted, but the corrosion is now set in, and I think people are now looking around and saying these conservative values, these family values, these notions of faith and freedom, we can't take them for granted. We've got to support them and fight for them, otherwise they will be removed from us. And I think that there's almost been a wake-up call, and this conference, if it does anything, is blowing the whistle, and it's telling people out there, get active in politics and support your country.
Well, no doubt that'll be something you'll be speaking about during your speech later this afternoon. But some of the delegates I've been speaking to this morning, wondering where people are, because the auditorium, when you go into the auditorium, it's only about half full. Many people thought it would be busier. Why do you think the turnout isn't perhaps as people had expected here?
Well, it is a three-day conference. I think the conference is set out for over 1,000 delegates. They're the members who bought tickets, and I think we are about 500-600 people there. That's pretty good for a Thursday morning and afternoon, and I believe it will continue to build. We've got other headline keynote speakers coming over the next few days, and I think that they will certainly fill the auditorium. But most importantly of all, we're getting the message out through your wonderful news channel. We're getting the messages out through the new media that's there, and that's very, very important, because people do need to be reached in this day and age, and coming to a conference can be a huge commitment for some people, but I think that the conference has been a success. There's about 500 or 600 people in there at the moment, and I think that's encouraging.
Okay, and Ian, as a former MP, I want to ask you about politics. We're going to have a new Prime Minister next week. What do you make of Andy Burnham?
Well, look, I know Andy Burnham. I knew him when he was an MP, and then, of course, he left to become the Mayor of Greater Manchester. It's up to the Labour Party to decide who their leader is. They've obviously decided that Keir Starmer is no longer a vote-getter. They now need Andy, who they hope will be a vote-getter, and they will try to win in that. Andy will have a very, very difficult challenge. He doesn't have much economic headroom to make the differences that are necessary for the economy, and I think he'll face major challenges sooner rather than later. I don't think he's going to have a very long honeymoon, and the Labour Party has been so erratic. I mean, the ultra-left in the Labour Party aren't really Burnham supporters. They want someone else in, and so there'll almost be a chasing down now of Andy from his own side as well. That's just the nature of, unfortunately, Labour Party politics, and I think we'll see that this is not going to be a swan song or a nice easy ride by any means.
Do you think what kind of an impact do you think he'll have on the country? Do you think? I mean, I spoke to Liz Truss earlier. She didn't really think it would have much of an impact. Do you think he will?
Well, I suppose the big piece for him will be, has he got a mandate? What are his policies? Because personalities are one thing, policies are what is important, and the economic policy is the driver in all of this, and we don't know what that is yet. He has to give us a presentation of that. Will he change the policies with regards to the environment? Will he change the policies with regards to debt and borrowing? I mean, we borrowed over £110 million last year to pay off the interest of the previous debt. That's not sustainable. That's called bankruptcy. My bank wouldn't allow me to do that, to pay off my credit cards, you know, and wouldn't allow you to do it. So it's absolutely essential that we get some sort of economic reality injected in here and the economy starts to go forward.
Ian Paisley Jr., thank you very much for joining us on GB News from a packed day here at CPAC. Lots more coming up throughout the afternoon.
Thanks,
Will
Will.
Godley, thanks very much indeed.
A bit of economic growth wouldn't go amiss, would it? But Andy Burnham, in his little chummy interview with Gary Lineker, suggesting that he might come back to us for even more money.
Yeah, not ruling out the idea of a wealth tax. Now, could this be hitting your family home? Could this be taxing, frankly, the property that people own a lot more? Well, we'll discuss that in a little bit.
What if you're in search of some holiday sun? Here's the forecast.
Ready to soak up that holiday sunshine?
Won't we need some cover?
No worries, all sorted.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
The heat across parts of Europe has been a big talking point through recent weeks. Currently, there's hot air across France, but that's edging southwards through the next few days. There are some showery bursts of rain, perhaps some rumbles of thunder across Greece tomorrow. It's hot across Italy, lots of sunshine here. Outbreaks of rain for parts of France, and like I said, that heat pushing its way southwards into Spain. Here there will be the odd shower around, but generally it's looking fine and sunny, and for many, that's how it's going to be into next week.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
GB News Breakfast, every day from 6 a.m.
What an ambassador for Britain, for the country. He's just an amazing person, and I saw him interview this morning. He could hardly speak, could he? He was squeaking more than speaking, but it was just amazing. Every single player in that team, they made us so proud. It was fantastic to watch.
I'm just looking at your leader's Twitter feed. Nothing yet from Kevin Badenoch. We've heard from Keir Starmer. We've heard from Nigel Farage. Why doesn't Kevin Badenoch want to support the England team today?
I think she's supporting them, but I think she just felt it was the wrong. There are lots of duties she's got on today. A busy day again for her, but so I understand why anybody didn't watch it, because it was not a great time for watching in the middle of the night. But I know Kemi is very supportive of the England team.
GB News, the People's Channel. GB News Breakfast, every day from 6 a.m.
Should we wind it up a bit more?
Yes.
Because we're going full mariachi on you this morning. And so, con ustedes el mejor mariachi de Paddington.
GB News, the People's Channel. This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
She's a Russian blue. What makes Denka such a good pet?
She's very affectionate. They're very dog-like in their behaviour, very solid breed, and basically they're a pet for life, really.
Amazing. Well, Denka's been very, very well behaved here. And speaking of behaviour, Anna Webb, dog behaviouralist, joins me now. The show's been doing some research about how music affects different pets. What have they found?
Well, they found that reggae really helps calm dogs in particular. And charities like Battersea have been playing reggae in their kennels for ages, and scientists have proven that it does reduce their cortisol levels because of the 4x4 rhythm of reggae and the beats per minute that goes from 70 to 120 beats per minute. It covers all shapes and sizes of dogs, from large ones at 70 to small ones have a faster heartbeat at 120.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Good afternoon, Britain. It's just a couple of minutes to go until the end of the hour, but as Pakistan resists attempts by the British government to deport a freed ringleader of the Rochdale grooming gang, well, one of them at least, Number 10 has pushed for him to be deported, saying this vile man should not be in the UK.
We knew that already, right, Tom? We knew that already. The problem is that Pakistan are saying we have no connection whatsoever to this matter. We're not taking him back. You have to comply by the laws that you have in the UK. we'll rub our hands of him.
Now, we're changing the law in the UK because the 1971 Immigration Act meant that anyone who came here before 1973 from a Commonwealth country has sort of cannot be deported.
There he is, the disgusting man.
Has effectively British citizenship. However, that law is being changed. He has been stripped of his British citizenship. He was a dual national. He was stripped of his British citizenship, meaning he is now a Pakistani citizen. And frankly, we have a lot of levers to use to force him back to Pakistan.
If we can't deport him, you know, soon enough, we should just send him back to jail. His crimes were absolutely despicable. Sexual offences against children.
But do we have a strong enough government to threaten foreign aid or indeed visa sanctions?
Well, Shahbaz Mahmood might want to, but she might be out the door soon. She might be Chancellor instead.
Yeah, lots of politics behind that. Well, we'll get to all of that and much more after your latest weather forecast.
Expect warm spells with the odd rude interruption. Box Boiler sponsors the weather on GB News.
Hello and welcome to the latest update from the Met Office for GB News. Another widely sunny and dry day for the vast majority of the United Kingdom. Very warm, if not hot in places. But some cloud in the northeast. Now that's been creeping inland overnight. It will burn back to the coast of eastern Scotland, northeast England through the day, leaving plenty of sunshine with high pressure in control across the United Kingdom. And you can see the widespread sunshine there for most of inland UK, but northern and eastern Scotland, eastern England prone to some of that low cloud persisting around beaches. A fresh breeze coming in from the east, so temperatures at around the mid-20s, I think, on the east coast, but inland, high 20s fairly widely, up to 30 Celsius in one or two spots. Outside chance of a shower reaching the far southwest, otherwise it's simply dry and fine for the vast majority, and you can see some of that patchy cloud affecting eastern Scotland as we go into the evening. Best of the sunshine towards the west. Northern Ireland, 25 degrees for Belfast, a lovely end of the day, having peaked into the high 20s in places. Across a wide swathe of England and Wales, we're still in the high 20s going into the evening. Clear skies. A fresh feel, however. Humidity levels are generally dropping over the next few days. So, yeah, I think more comfortable conditions overnight for many of us. Clear spells for many as well, but we do have that low cloud in the east once again returning, and that will give a few spots of rain and drizzle first thing Friday. Temperatures typically around 13 to 16 Celsius. Then we start off Friday with that low cloud. I think it will affect northern Scotland a bit more compared with Thursday morning. Northern Ireland also prone to some of these low cloud patches. It tends to retreat back to the beaches, but you wouldn't rule out a few light showers into the northeast of Scotland and the odd shower bubbling up across the southwest peninsula. Otherwise, it's dry, sunny and very warm once again.
Expect warm spells with the odd rude interruption. Box Boiler sponsors the weather on GB News.
We're celebrating a golden summer with a terrific two-part Great British giveaway. First, you could win a sensational £60,000 in tax-free cash. And that's not all, as you'll also win our most precious prize to date, a fine gold bar worth over £5,000. For a chance to win, text GOLD to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message. Or text BONUS to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entry start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB22 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrants must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 21st of August. This is a network giveaway. Entries will be pulled. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Bold. They are under no illusion. Ray. Are you a human trafficker? Boundless. I've had enough of the nonsense, and I'm not afraid to say it.
Don't get us on the BBC.
Every weeknight, I tear through the headlines.
The smell of gasoline. Should we be worried about it?
From Westminster madness to cultural war chaos.
What we're going to do now is they are throwing things out the car as we speak.
Get ready, Britain. Here we go. Patrick Christie's tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m. only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
I've been in Westminster for a long time. But I know that though power may be here, its effect on people's lives is across the whole of the country. We may be where rules are made, but it's where they're implemented that matters. Join me, Jacob Rees-Mogg, for forthright and frank discussion on where Britain has come from, where it's going, and where it will end up. That's State of the Nation, Monday to Thursday, 8 to 9 o'clock. Vox Populi, Vox Dei.
From cold mornings
to warm family brunches.
From football to tennis in the car.
In the kitchen.
GB News Breakfast is there. With the stories you need and the conversations that matter.
Anyway, let's talk business.
Well, it has been a historic night in British politics.
It's astonishing, isn't it? We're here again. To start your day just right. GB News Breakfast.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on GB News.
Britain's news channel.
You want to know what's really going on in the corridors of power? Labour don't know what to do with you half the time, and that makes you quite lethal in the chamber. Get behind the headlines with Chopper's Political Podcast. Join me, Christopher Hope, as I sit down with the great and the good of British politics. We'll see where this ruling takes us. These are the stories shaping our nation. Chopper's Political Podcast, available now on all platforms. Listen in and stay ahead.
Good afternoon, Britain. It's 1 o'clock on Thursday, the 16th of July. I'm Emily Carver.
And I'm Tom Harwood. Well, breaking news in the last hour, Downing Street has backed a minister's call for FIFA to investigate whether Argentina players broke rules by waving a banner in support of their country's illegitimate claims to our Falkland Islands.
Should they be sanctioned?
That's right, the PM backs Peter Kyle, the business secretary, calling for action from FIFA. And number 10 says this on the Falklands: the World Cup might not be ours, but the Falkland Islands are.
Residents living near a migrant camp in Crowborough say they're taking security into their own hands now, spending thousands on cameras, fencing and community patrols. We're on the ground live as local people fight back.
And in his first interview in 2 weeks, not with a journalist, mind, with a former footballer, Burnham refused to rule out a wealth tax, saying that the state of public finances may require people to pay a little more.
If you want to work, earn good money and have a good life, you need to go to the UK. They don't deport anyone. Yes, those are the words of a so-called travel agency in Iraq. We'll discuss.
She was a kind and generous human being, and we are all so devastated that she has been taken from us. Now let's reflect on Anne's remarkable life.
A moving moment there as the former Prime Minister Liz Truss fought back tears as she led tributes to Anne Widdecombe at the Conservative Political Action Conference in London today. We're there live.
And in other news, the government seizes control of British Steel in a dramatic bid to save thousands of jobs and secure the future of production. GB News spoke to Business and Trade Secretary Peter Carl.
I couldn't guarantee the supply of steel into our country, so I have decided to take the unusual but needed step to bring British Steel under public ownership.
Meanwhile, as some Caribbean leaders demand Britain decolonises its remaining possessions in the region, like the British Virgin Islands, the Cayman Islands and Bermuda, we'll speak to an expert who says be careful what you wish for.
So the government is saying that we want this man deported, Shabir Ahmed, this grooming gang leader up in Rochdale.
Yeah.
He served his sentence, well, some of it anyway. He's out. But Pakistan are just saying absolutely not. They've gone as far as to say it's Britain's fault for turning this guy to crime. They say he grew up, was raised, groomed and unfortunately spoiled in our country. They say that any onus for dealing with this guy lies exclusively with the United Kingdom. And it goes on.
This specific kind of group-based grooming and sexual assault is many things. Distinctively British it is not. Now, that's not to say there are not many sexual abusers who are native to this country and its culture and are despicable in their own way. But this specific kind of group-based grooming, of picking up girls outside of school, of bringing them back to a group of mainly Pakistani men who brutally rape them over months and years.
Bringing friends in, family members.
Family members covering it up. It's a specific problem of a specific community. If Pakistan wants to wash its hands of it, well, I'm sorry, we're going to have to stop sending foreign aid. £100 million of British taxpayers' money went to Pakistan last year in foreign aid, and 150,000 visas were given to Pakistan last year. And those visas are also money for Pakistan because of the remittances that people send back to that country when they come over. So Pakistan wants those British visas. Pakistan wants that British aid. I'm sorry, if they're not going to play ball on taking back their own criminals, what justification is there to continue sending hundreds of millions of pounds over a multi-year settlement of British taxpayers' money?
I completely agree with you. It's absolutely outrageous. We need to get really tough on this. No visas from Pakistan. Done. Until you take back your grooming gang leaders. It's as easy as that, surely. But this Foreign Affairs spokesperson over there says his heinous crimes demand serious introspection rather than a quest to search for extraneous causes.
They're trying to say that the grooming gangs are...
all our fault. It's our culture that's to blame.
Are a British culture problem.
Yeah.
Not a problem of those who refuse to integrate into British culture.
It's our fault, yeah.
Extraordinary.
GBNews.com/your say. Let us know your thoughts. Do you have confidence that this government will manage to deport this man? Anyway, let's get to the headlines with Sam.
Thank you both, and good afternoon to you. Just gone 1 o'clock, the headlines this lunchtime. Downing Street has backed calls for FIFA to investigate Argentina's players after they held up a banner supporting their country's claim on the Falkland Islands. It came after England's World Cup dream ended in a heartbreaking 2-1 semi-final defeat. Tributes, though, have been pouring in for the Three Lions, with the Prince of Wales saying he was gutted but proud. Sir Keir Starmer also praised the team's passion, their energy and fight. It means that Argentina will now face Spain in Sunday's final. Well, earlier, Shadow Minister Andrew Griffith told us that Argentina's players were wrong and said that politics should be kept separate from football.
FIFA in the past have fined Britain for wearing poppies on their shirts. They've suspended Spanish players when they called for Gibraltar to be part of Spain. So action this day from FIFA, whether it's fines or suspensions. This cannot wait until the end of the tournament. It is incredibly important that they send that signal that this behaviour was unacceptable. Fair enough, unfortunately, we lost tonight, but democracy and self-determination can't be the losers.
Also this lunchtime, Sir Keir Starmer has rejected claims that Ukraine is draining European security, insisting instead that Kyiv has helped to protect the continent. The outgoing Prime Minister met Volodymyr Zelensky in Kyiv just hours after Russian strikes killed 2 people and injured 6 others. Sir Keir said that Britain's support for Ukraine will not waver and that Andy Burnham's arrival in number 10 would not change the UK's backing. He was also awarded Ukraine's Order of Freedom, that is the country's highest honour for a foreign national, and said it meant a huge amount. Well, speaking alongside Volodymyr Zelensky earlier in Kyiv, the outgoing Prime Minister said that Ukraine had pushed back one of the world's biggest armies with guts and ingenuity.
Anyone who thinks that Ukraine is somehow a drain on European security is just plain wrong. The truth is, Ukraine's stand has preserved European security. It is now one of the most battle-hardened, tech-savvy, creative military forces in the world. It is a net contributor to our collective security and the best ally that we could hope to have.
2 young hackers have each been jailed for 5 years and 6 months after admitting a major cyber attack on Transport for London. 18-year-old Owen Flowers and 20-year-old Tala Jaber caused £29 million of losses and forced TfL to shut down parts of its own systems. The court heard the pair reached the highest level of access in the system and could have caused catastrophic damage in the capital. And the Home Secretary says she is taking urgent action to hold MI5 to account after a report found false evidence was given to courts. The investigation found serious failings by individual MI5 officers and criticised the security service as a whole. It centres on a case involving a violent extremist informant where courts were misled about how the security service had handled key information. MI5's Director General has apologised for the incorrect evidence and said that the agency fell well short of what the public expects and deserves. Those are this lunchtime's headlines. More news shortly. Now, though, it's back to Tom and Emily.
Right, well, good afternoon, Britain. It's 8 minutes past 8, and we're going to go speak to GB News' Patrick Christys because he's in Crowborough today, speaking to residents living near a migrant camp.
Yes, residents say they're taking security into their own hands, spending thousands of pounds on cameras, fencing and even community patrols.
Well, GB News presenter Patrick Christys joins us now. Patrick, so people are putting their hands in their own pockets to try and keep themselves safe?
Yeah, absolutely. And we've just seen it firsthand, actually. As we were driving from one location to another, we got a notification from a local resident that some people from this camp here just behind us had left the camp, had gone to a local Lidl and were seen drinking alcohol and loitering around the car park. They then walked down from the Lidl and back towards the camp. They're not allowed to have alcohol in this camp, so what they were doing was they were drinking it on the way and then obviously dispose of the bottles. But also, we happen to be with two members of Crowborough Aware, which is one of these patrols that you were just talking about. I've got Dave and James here. We actually caught this interaction on camera and it'll be going out on my show live 9 to 11 p.m. But Dave, could you just explain to our viewers and listeners exactly what it is you guys do and why?
OK, so Crowborough Aware came about because we were concerned once the camp arrived of safety and security in our town. Now, the police, they don't get out of their cars, they don't get on their feet, they don't do a proper patrol. So we felt that it was necessary to actually do the job of the police to ensure that safety in our town. So we're here primarily for the women, the children and for the town, who the vast majority want us here. So whilst they want us here, we will keep doing what we're doing.
Now, look, I will say, and you'll see this later on this evening, most likely, that the chaps that came into this camp, they seemed nice enough, don't get me wrong, they were polite, they shook hands, etc. Was what it was. But how often is an interaction like that, or something a little bit worse when it comes to antisocial behaviour? How common is that here? How often are you dealing with it?
Well, we've had an assault. A guy was assaulted outside of Lidl. So that's one. You're gonna... I don't know why, but for some reason they don't like being filmed. Our concern is not just for the people of Crowborough. It's for the asylum seekers as well, because they don't like being filmed. And our concern is that a member of the public, because everybody's got mobile phones these days, is going to film them and there's going to be an altercation there.
And there's a golf course that's just at the end of this road. We're going to go to there and show you it in a second. But the 13th tee has become quite infamous, hasn't it? Do you want to explain why?
Yeah, I think mainly because where the entrance is here, it's literally across the road. There's some nice steps onto the tee. They congregate there. But very recently I recovered 17 bottles of beer there, two bottles of vodka, and we effectively escorted the individuals that were drinking there back down into the camp. We didn't do it by force, we just escorted them back down. I collected up all the bottles, handed them to Clear Springs Ready Homes, the people that run the security in the camp. I said this needs to be logged, it needs to be noted and it needs to be dealt with. We cannot have this in our community.
Absolutely. Well, look, like I said, we've obviously been gathering a lot of footage throughout the day. You will see all of it 9 to 11 p.m. Thank you very much, chaps. There's a van coming in and it is very much a tidal wave of traffic here. Very often, by the way, taxis. Why? Well, because as you're about to see later on, they actually are allowed to get taxis and minibuses from here into nearby towns as well, about 3 times a day. But look, thank you very much. I'll throw it back to you in the studio, but we're going to be keeping gathering information here in Crowborough throughout the day.
Cheers. Thank you, Patrick. Patrick there in Crowborough. We'll catch him again later on in the show, I hope. But yeah, it's quite interesting, isn't it, that you've got local people feeling really uneasy about the situation, that they're mobilising, not only putting their money where their mouth is, really, forced to look after their own community.
Well, let's discuss this a little more with the political commentator Aisha Ali Khan, because, Aisha, some people will be saying, oh, they're worrying about nothing. They're spending their own money and there haven't been incidents in this town. And yet, there have been incidents in other places. And people will be thinking, isn't spending some money to prevent something that might take place better than reacting to something after it takes place?
I think obviously we heard from the community and people are concerned, but I do think it's wrong to demonise a whole group of people who haven't been accused of doing anything. Yes, there have been incidents, like we talked about the horrific rape that happened in Brighton, the three asylum seekers that attacked a vulnerable a woman on the beach. But majority of the men that have come, obviously we're, seeing people slowly being moved out of hotels in city centres and where lots of people live, to areas like Crowborough, buildings like these army barracks, where this is just a temporary measure. We're putting people there so that we can process them and get them, if they're obviously unsuccessful, get them deported back to whichever countries they've come from. And right now, it's almost like Shabana Mahmood can't do right from doing wrong. When we had the hotels that were costing £9 million a day, people were complaining, rightly so, because it's a huge burden on the taxpayer. And now we've got these sites that are, some of them are completely empty. They're just lying, they're disused sites, and they're being repurposed.
The problem is that a lot of people in this country just don't want these people to be here. They see them as illegal migrants. I know that when you apply for asylum, you then become legitimate in one way or another. But they broke into this country illegally on a small boat. Then they're put into very quiet communities, as well as elsewhere in cities and things around the country. People just don't want them to be in any type of accommodation. They don't want them in this country.
Well, Emily, I've always argued that the reason why we have these people coming over illegally is because the legitimate routes have been curtailed so much. So people feel they've got no choice. If we had more legal routes into the UK, we would be able to assess the people when they apply.
I think people would still come illegally, because if they weren't, a legitimate asylum seeker, then they wouldn't be allowed to stay. And then they'd have to come by illegal means. But anyway, we'll leave it for now. Aisha Ali Khan, thank you very much indeed for your contributions.
Now let's hear what the authorities are saying. It's worth noting Sussex Police not formally endorsed or partnered with the Crowborough Aware Volunteer Patrol Group, and the chief officers maintain that regular policing around the camp remains sufficient.
Well, a Wealdon District Council spokesperson said Wealdon District Council understands that the situation at Crowborough Army Camp has caused concern and uncertainty for many residents. However, the council does not accept that it has failed to engage with residents.
They continue. Since the Home Office announced plans to use this camp, the council has remained actively involved, seeking further information and clarity on behalf of residents and ensuring local views and concerns are represented.
Home Office spokesperson said the safety of local communities is central to our immigration reforms, which is why asylum seekers are routinely screened against policing, criminality and immigration databases before they are permitted to move into sites.
We're closing every asylum hotel and moving asylum seekers into basic accommodation, including ex-military sites. 5 former military sites are being explored to house asylum seekers. That's from the Home Office.
OK, well, let us know your thoughts. But last night, sorry to tell you again, it was a heartbreaking night for England. The Three Lions were knocked out by the defending champions, Argentina.
Yes, England were 5 minutes away from a World Cup final, but conceded 2 late goals, meaning England's 60-year wait for that famous trophy continues.
Yes, we've got the Euros coming up at least. And there was controversy following the final whistle as the Argentine players held up a banner which translates to "The Falklands are Argentinian." And yes, this does break FIFA's rule on political slogans.
Well, Downing Street has backed a minister's call for FIFA to investigate whether the Argentinian players broke those rules by waving that banner in support of their country's colonialist ambitions, saying the World Cup might not be ours, but the Falkland Islands definitely are.
OK, well, let's speak to political commentator and football fan Benedict Spence. So what happens here? So FIFA do a little investigation and then there might be a fine or something? Is that what happens?
Yeah, I mean, in the past, players have been given bans for this sort of thing. I mean, Spanish players, for instance, were banned after they made chants about Gibraltar in a game against England a couple of years ago. But given that this is on the cusp of the World Cup final, I don't think FIFA will have the balls, actually, to ban anybody, because, that would ruin their spectacle. If you had key players not being allowed to play, it would make the Argentines very upset, and we know how touchy they are about just about everything, how quickly they are to get upset. And, I mean, it will be a small fine, probably, maybe, in the tens of thousands, maybe 100,000 or so. which might not seem very much in the grand scheme of football, but we've got to remember that's about the entirety of Argentina's GDP these days. So, it's quite a hefty amount of money to an Argentine. But as I say, they won't get punished in the way that they should do. But listen, they've got their little white flag. They like white flags in Argentina. They've got a little slogan on it. That's as close as they're going to get to the Falkland Islands. Let them have their moment. This is kind of all that country has, let's be honest.
It did seem like that watching the game last night, Benedict, because they were so scrappy. It felt like everything in their little lives depended on that moment. And I don't know, maybe the Brits or the English were a little bit more relaxed. I mean, as you say, Argentina has football and that's about it. Whereas we have art and culture and music and at least some sort of economy. I mean, bizarrely, given the way that the country's been run in the last decade, we still do have the 5th largest economy in the world here. And we still do have a navy, yes, depleted, but at least we have a navy, and Argentina doesn't.
I mean, there's a meme that does the rounds whenever England beat anybody at football, which is that you put together a list of the greatest names of a country's celebrities, artists, etc., and then you add the words, your boys took one hell of a beating at the end of it. So I don't know, for France it might be, let's say, Napoleon, it might be sort of great artists, it might be Matisse, say. You put them all together. And I was thinking about Argentina's yesterday. To be honest, it's just footballers and former Nazis who fled there after the Second World War. I think that kind of gives you an idea of Argentina's great contributions to things like literature or art. That's basically it. It's just a haven for people that don't want to be in Europe anymore, and footballers. Now, that's okay if that's your thing, but it does kind of give the impression that it's a country that's got one thing going for it, apart from invading territory that belongs to neighbors that it never really owned anyway. There's a reason, interestingly, also, that lots of people in Latin America are not particularly keen on Argentina, and why lots of them were supporting England last night. And that's because Argentina has a bit of form for being not the most pleasant place either for those people either. You ask the average Chilean what they might think of the Argentines, or the average Uruguayan. It's not particularly, it's not particularly kind. But I think when it comes down to the question of football itself, joking aside, I do think that there is that degree of, when it comes to England, a lack of determination, a lack of confidence, which I think actually reflects more broadly currents across society in general. England, Britain, is a country that is not very assured of itself, in some ways ashamed of itself. That has been ingrained in people from very early on, and I think that that has led to a real lack of grit. Whereas countries like Argentina, give them their due for what little they have. They are patriotic, they are determined, and they're they're prepared to pursue failed causes such as the Falkland Islands, even to the very end. And that's why ultimately they were able to come through right at the end last night.
Well, I think I'll be cheering on Spain come Sunday. Benedict, thank you very much for that humorous commentary there. Benedict Spence, political commentator and football fan.
Absolutely. Well, this is Good Afternoon Britain on GB News. Lots more still to come.
If you want to work, earn good money and have a good life, you need to go to the UK. They don't deport anyone. Those are the words of a so-called travel agency in Iraq. We'll discuss.
But after the break, in his first interview in 2 weeks with a former footballer rather than a journalist, I might add, Burnham refused to rule out a wealth tax, saying the state of public finances may require people to pay a little more.
Oh, a little more, yes. All of that and more to come. You're with GB News, Britain's #1 news channel.
Exciting news. Every Friday, my Patrick Christie's Tonight Show is going to have a twist to it. We're welcoming some special guests. You. That's right, on Fridays I'm going to be doing my show in front of a live studio audience, because this show is about you and what you have to say. It's going to be the same big debates, same big topics, same big opinions, but every Friday night at 9 p.m. you are invited to come on down to Patrick Christie's Tonight to be a part of the action. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Some people enjoy lazy Sunday mornings, but not me.
What's the truth of the matter? So that's a very live question. Would you support him if he waters down these plans?
Before the spin sets in, I'll be getting to the truth.
This is personal.
No soft questions, no easy answers.
It's one thing if the state has rules in this country. It's another thing whether the police and others actually police them.
Setting the agenda and holding those in power to account.
You can't really blame her if the system is set up this way.
You will not want to miss it, trust me. The Camilla Tominey Show, Sundays from 9:30, only on GB News.
Here at GB News, we made a promise to tell your stories.
And on the 6th of August, we're marking 5 years of doing exactly that.
Celebrate with us by having your say. Join in the debates live on TV and radio.
And meeting your favourite presenters across the country, from Leeds to Aberdeen, from Belfast to Barry Island.
Plus, join me in Essex for our biggest live show of the year. Scan the QR code or visit gbnews.com/celebrate. Terms and conditions apply. As soon as it hits 11 and the headlines come in,
Late Edition brings you the breaking news from all the front pages.
because the news is going to happen.
So get a head start today.
Patrick Christie's Tonight, Late Edition.
Alex Armstrong Tonight, Late Edition. From 11 o'clock every night.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation,
No,
isn't it?
no,
Because the failure is
you're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back,
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
and we do not shy away from the difficult stuff. Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood. So join me on Dubes & Co. weeknights at 6 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
At the stroke of midnight, the news doesn't stop, and neither do we.
Day in, day out. Forget stuffy late night TV shows. We're giving you a front row ticket to the centre of the political universe.
Because breaking news doesn't wait for the morning.
And neither do we. Join us for one of the most controversial and volatile times of politics in human history.
A very big story.
Big story over here.
You won't get this anywhere else. The Late Show live at midnight, every night.
Only on GB News.
Good afternoon, Britain. It's 24 minutes past 1. Let's cross over to our political editor, Christopher Hope, because there's an enormous amount of politics going on at the moment. You were recently speaking to the Prime Minister's official spokesman in Downing Street, and much was said.
Yeah, that's right, Tom and Emily. We're hearing a kind of relaxed, almost quite a funny Prime Minister now, as he faces standing down as Labour leader tomorrow and Prime Minister on Monday. We asked Number 10 who he's supporting, what his view is of the World Cup final on Sunday, and they said this: the Prime Minister wishes both teams well in the final, particularly Spain, which is a wonderfully understated way of saying we don't want the Argentinians to win the World Cup. And also, you mentioned earlier with your chat there with Benedict Spence, the commentator, Number 10 saying they echo the view of Peter Kyle that there should be a review by FIFA into the way these football players brandished that Malvinas flag last night, and the PM was very clear. They say this, or Number 10 was very clear. The PM wishes both teams, but they'll be very clear here on the ownership of the and who's in charge of the sovereignty of the Falkland Islands. The World Cup might not be ours, but the Falkland Islands are. Now, the Prime Minister right now is in Ukraine at a press conference with Volodymyr Zelensky. We'll be playing that out shortly. They've announced more funding again for Ukraine, and he's been given a medal, a Freedom Award by President Zelensky. That was after, of course, he was made the Légion d'honneur by Emmanuel Macron of France a couple of days ago. So we're really at the back end, the very fag end of this Starmer government. A government known, really, for U-turns, about turns, saying one thing and doing another. And would you believe it, on the final day as Labour leader, 3 days before quitting as Prime Minister, another U-turn by this Labour government, the 5th by my count. Others include local elections, mandatory digital ID, winter fuel payments, welfare and PIP reform, and the two-child benefit cap. This latest one is how to pay Coast Guards properly. They're currently paid £11 an hour if they drop everything and go and save lives. 3,000 Coast Guards around the country. They're moving towards a voluntary expenditure scheme from September, and that's been dropped largely because of the campaigning by Joe Robertson, who's a Tory MP based on the Isle of Wight. Joe Robertson, you must be delighted to get this U-turn from the government.
It's great news today that the government was backing the Maritime and Coast Guard Agency of stripping these brave heroes of all their pay, by the way they've received for over 100 years. Today the Maritime Minister said instead of backing it, it's going to block it. It's a great day, but do you know what? The government would have been done better to do it right in the first place. And if it had on so many of these issues, the Prime Minister might still be in office, but I'll take the U-turn.
We featured these Coast Guards on GB News, particularly on the breakfast show in recent weeks, and they are just normal people, heroic people who drop everything to save lives. And to go to an expensive scheme, not just £11 an hour, which frankly is barely the minimum wage, just seems grossly unfair to them.
So they're heroes who typically have other jobs, but they tradespeople, small business owners, teachers, nurses. And as you say, they drop everything when the pager goes, any time of night. They miss weddings, they miss Christmas meals, to go and save lives and search for missing children or people caught on cliffs. The idea that they're paid for 100 years, but this September the government was happy to strip them of all that pay is madness. As you say, £11 an hour is nothing for the incredible work they do. And they don't get paid for waiting around, and they don't get paid for clearing up. So it's good the government have U-turned. They've made it absolutely clear that they will now fully consult. But the campaign goes on, because there is still a decision to be made, and I want to ensure that that secures the money for the next 100 years. But also, frankly, the Maritime Coast Guard Agency needs a massive shake-up. There's a real crisis of confidence in the leadership there.
It seems they did a survey of staff or volunteers at the Maritime Coast Guard Agency and came up with the wrong answer. Will their pay go up now?
We don't know what will happen. All the government have said is no change in September, and frankly, that gives the Coast Guard rescue officers the security they need over the summer, that nothing will change before MPs come back. I suspect the government will keep this pay in perpetuity, but we can't guarantee that, so the campaign must go on. But you're absolutely right. The boss of the Maritime Coast Guard Agency told MPs in person that 93% of rescue officers wanted to move to an unpaid model. When the survey was leaked publicly, that figure was shown to be completely untrue. So there is a real issue about how the MCA is led, and I think the whole organisation needs a root and branch change.
And just finally, Keir Starmer stands down as the leader of the Labour Party tomorrow, on Monday as Prime Minister. How will history judge him? I mean, his government is a theme now of repeated U-turns on areas of policy.
The man who lost it all, the man who was elected 2 years ago with a huge Tony Blair-style landslide, and within 2 years his own party had dumped him out. I mean, on a personal level, I don't wish him ill. Hopefully he has a long and happy retirement, but as a Prime Minister, a failure, sadly.
OK, Joe Robertson, thank you for joining us. And just to go back to what the government's saying today on that, Keir Mather, who is the Transport Minister for the government, they say they've scrutinised the information provided to them that meant they moved from a pay scheme to an expenses scheme. Having done so, it's clear, they say, that parts of the information gathering process to inform this decision were not sufficiently detailed to properly reflect the impact of these changes. I can therefore confirm that plans to move to the expenses-only volunteer model in September will now not go ahead, and current arrangements remain in place. So there you are, Tom and Emily, the 15th and probably final U-turn by the Keir Starmer government.
One final U-turn and one final foreign trip today to Ukraine. It's a big day for this dying premiership. Thank you very much indeed. Christopher Hope will catch up with you later.
Well, this is Good Afternoon Britain on GB News. Lots more still to come on today's programme.
She was a kind and generous human being, and we are all so devastated that she has been taken from us. Now let's reflect on Anne's remarkable life.
Well, yes, the former Prime Minister Liz Truss there fighting back tears as she led tributes to Anne Widdecombe at the Conservative Political Action Conference in London today. We're going to be there live next. All of that and more after your headlines.
Very good afternoon to you. The top story this lunchtime. Downing Street has backed calls for FIFA to investigate Argentina after the squad held up a banner supporting their claim to the Falkland Islands. It came after England's World Cup dream ended in a 2-1 semi-final defeat. A number 10 spokesperson said the World Cup might not be ours, but the Falkland Islands definitely are. Also this hour, 2 young hackers have been jailed for 5 years and 6 months each after admitting a cyber attack on Transport for London. 18-year-old Owen Flowers and 20-year-old Tala Jaber caused £29 million in losses. The attack forced TfL to shut down parts of its own systems. In Ukraine, Sir Keir Starmer has told Volodymyr Zelensky that Britain's cast-iron support for the nation will always endure on his final visit to Kyiv as Prime Minister. The trip came just hours after Russian strikes killed 2 people. Here, ministers are promising to take every action necessary to protect children in nurseries after recent abuse and neglect cases. New measures will include stronger safeguarding training and plans to give inspectors more powers across whole nursery chains. And a record number of 18-year-olds in the UK have received offers for undergraduate courses. University admissions figures shows that 99% of school leavers who applied by the January deadline have at least one offer ahead of results day. Those are the lunchtime headlines. More news at 2.
Take the GB News family with you on any device. As long as you have an internet connection, tune into GB News anywhere on the planet or beyond.
Good afternoon, Britain. 33 minutes past 1 is the time. Lots more still to come.
Yes, the government has seized control of British Steel. It's a dramatic bid to save thousands of jobs, they say, and secure the future of production in the country.
Well, GB News spoke to the Business and Trade Secretary, Peter Kyle.
I couldn't guarantee the supply of steel into our country, so I have decided to take the unusual but needed step to bring British Steel under public ownership.
Public ownership, or as you and I might call it, state ownership. Well,
yeah, is it a good thing, bad thing? Will it save jobs? Will it cost us tremendously? We'll find out.
The reason why we can't make steel in this country is energy is too expensive. Now, just moving the expense from the private business to the taxpayer is not a solution. Anyway, all of that and much more to come here with GB News, Britain's news channel.
Hello and welcome to the latest update from the Met Office for GB News. Another widely sunny and dry day for the vast majority of the United Kingdom. Very warm, if not hot in places. Some cloud in the northeast. Now that's been creeping inland overnight. It will burn back to the coast of eastern Scotland, northeast England through the day, leaving plenty of sunshine with high pressure in control across the United Kingdom. And you can see the widespread sunshine there for most of inland UK, but northern and eastern Scotland, eastern England prone to some of that low cloud persisting around beaches. A fresh breeze coming in from the east, so temperatures at around the mid-20s, I think, on the east coast, but inland, high 20s fairly widely, up to 30 Celsius in 1 or 2 spots. Outside chance of a shower reaching the far southwest, otherwise it's simply dry and fine for the vast majority, and you can see some of that patchy cloud affecting eastern Scotland as we go into the evening. Best of the sunshine towards the west. Northern Ireland, 25 degrees for Belfast. A lovely end of the day, having peaked into the high 20s in places. Across a wide swathe of England and Wales, we're still in the high 20s going into the evening. Clear skies. A fresh feel, however. Humidity levels are generally dropping over the next few days. So, yeah, I think more comfortable conditions overnight for many of us. Clear spells for many as well. But we do have that low cloud in the east once again returning. And that will give a few spots of rain and drizzle first thing Friday. Temperatures typically around 13 to 16 Celsius. Then we start off Friday with that low cloud. I think it will affect northern Scotland a bit more compared with Thursday morning. Northern Ireland also prone to some of these low cloud patches. It tends to retreat back to the beaches, but you wouldn't rule out a few light showers into the northeast of Scotland and the odd shower bubbling up across the southwest peninsula. Otherwise, it's dry, sunny and very warm once again. Thank you, Britain, for the thousands of you who are becoming friends of GB News each and every week.
Good afternoon. This is the latest AI travel news from GBnews.com. There is a collision on the M62 westbound at junction 12 in Eccles, causing delays. The M25 entry slip at junction 31 in Thurrock is closed. The A5 is closed after the A43 in Towcester. In Scotland, the A74M southbound off slip at junction 22 in Gretna is closed. Across Wales, the M4 westbound from J23A Mega to J26 Malpas is congested with possible delays. And on the trains, Chiltern Railway services between Birmingham Snow Hill and Leamington Spa are disrupted, with East Midlands Railway also affected by hot weather. For more travel news, go to gbnews.com.
Good afternoon, Britain. It's 37 minutes past 1. Now, the government has taken control of British Steel in a bid to, as they would describe it, save the industry.
Yes, they say it will protect thousands of jobs and safeguard Britain's steel-making future.
Well, let's hear from the Business and Trade Secretary, Peter Kyle, who had this to say.
We are building a lot in Britain at the moment, so if this plant were to disappear, it means that we would be left to the mercy of the international markets at a time when we all know that supply of critical supplies to our country is really uncertain. And I cannot allow that uncertainty to prevail when it comes to such an important commodity for our country.
Now, the Deputy Leader of Reform, Richard Tice, he says Labour has finally listened.
Credit where credit's due. They've listened to me. I've been saying for 7 years that we need to take British Steel back into public ownership and then invest in it, invest in rebuilding the blast furnaces so they're good for the next 50 years. So it's the right decision. It's taken them a bit too long since the recall of Parliament to debate this in April 2025. So finally they've got there. The key thing is that they only pay £1 in compensation because there are massive liabilities that come with this.
I want to just pick up on something that Peter Kyle said a second ago. He said we're building a lot in this country. Building a lot, according to whom? I mean, ultimately, we've had house building fall off a cliff since this government got elected. But also, it's not just that, it's infrastructure. I've been looking at something called the Construction PMI. That's basically a sort of survey of the industry.
Oh, yeah, I check that every day too, yeah.
There is a clear inflection point when this government gets elected. Above 50 in the index is growth, below 50 is contraction. Contraction, falling smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller. We are building far, far less in this country. This is housing, commercial and civil engineering. Civil engineering is the lowest. And this is the government that said it was going to build more infrastructure. Bridges, roads, rail, all the rest of it, yeah. And the pessimism in this industry is just off the chart. I just can't believe that the Business and Trade Secretary can blazonly get away with saying we're building a lot in this country when it's precisely the opposite of the truth.
Well, it's like Keir Starmer saying he left Britain in a better place. Anyway, joining us now is Managing Director of Reed Steel, Simon Boyd. So you've got Labour and also the Reform Party saying this is the right way forward, is it?
It is absolutely, and I've been campaigning for as long, if not longer, than Mr. Tice has for British Steel to be taken into public ownership. The main problems that has been with private investment. Taxpayer has been supporting private investment into British Steel through the back door, you know, with handouts given to the Chinese and the predecessor before that, and you know, the blast furnaces, only 2 remaining, have lacked serious investment. They're still operating out of 1950s technology, which still makes the finest steel in the world, believe it or not.
Simon, it might be the finest steel in the world. It's also some of the most expensive steel in the world. Industrial energy prices are 2 or 3 times what they are in the United States, in the United Kingdom. Frankly, isn't it simply the case that the reason why the private sector has been unable to keep this industry alive and why the government is now stepping in with taxpayer money to try and keep this failing industry limping on is because the government has killed this industry with its energy policy, with its net zero policy, with other regulations that have been slapped on to make this industry perhaps the least competitive steel industry in the world?
Well, that's absolutely right. There are different things that are causing damage to steel manufacturing and the whole manufacturing sector in the UK. And the dangerous madness for the race to net zero cannot be excluded, because there's a great irony in this. In one hand, the government, and I praise them for taking us into public ownership, but on one hand, they've taken it into public ownership, yet their own net zero policies exclude British Steel from tendering for a lot of the projects in the UK because they insist on low carbon steel. And we cannot make low carbon steel in the UK. Is it a good idea to have low carbon steel in the UK? Yes, it is, but it is also a good idea to invest in a state-of-the-art blast furnace so that we have one blast furnace that can produce virgin steel, and one electric arc furnace that can use the thousands of tons of scrap we generate in the UK and recycle that in for construction projects.
Now, a lot of people watching this and listening will totally agree. This is an important strategic industry, and if it needs taxpayer backing, then so be it. But do you have an idea of how much it will cost us?
I do, and it's a frightening number. I mean, at the moment, and I don't know if you're aware, it's been costing the taxpayer £1.3 million a day for every day since the government stepped in to stop Jingi from sabotaging the last of the...
Oh, it seems like... Oh, no, sorry, Simon, we just lost you for a second there. Just if you could repeat what you were just saying.
Yes, it's been costing the UK taxpayer about £1.3 million per day since the government stepped in to remove the Chinese from operating British Steel. They were deliberately sabotaging it. They have a 10 to 20-year plan, and we need a 10 to 20-year plan. The size of investment in here is enormous. I've been under the blast furnaces at Scunthorpe. I've been to the rolling mills at Teesside, and the rolling mills at Teesside are the finest in the world, and yet only 5 minutes away from them, they're going to be building a brand new...
Can you put a ballpark figure? Sorry, we're just running out of time. Do you have a sort of ballpark figure of how much this might cost us?
Yeah, 4 to 5 billion.
Okay.
425, not 45.
Yeah. 425. OK, Simon Boyd, really appreciate your time. Important day, Managing Director of Reed Steel. There you go, let us know your thoughts. Do you support this move, nationalisation?
That's the same as the black hole that we have in our defence plans.
Well,
wow. Well, this
steel's important for that, though, no?
I don't know why...
He'd just get the cheapest steel
I
from wherever.
I would totally get... would you like one tank built with...
You'd get dodgy Chinese
British steel, or would you use American steel and you'd be able to get 4 tanks for it because it's that much cheaper?
Well, do we want to lose that industry entirely? This is Good Afternoon Britain on GB News. Lots more coming up.
Yes, as some Caribbean leaders demand Britain decolonises its remaining possessions in the region, including the British Virgin Islands, the Cayman Islands and Bermuda, we'll speak to one expert who says, be careful what you wish for.
Well, if you're in search of some holiday sun, here's the forecast.
Ready to soak up that holiday sunshine?
Won't we need some cover?
No worries. All sorted.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
The heat across parts of Europe has been a big talking point through recent weeks. Currently, there's hot air across France, but that's edging southwards through the next few days. There are some showery bursts of rain, perhaps some rumbles of thunder across Greece tomorrow. It's hot across Italy, lots of sunshine here. Outbreaks of rain for parts of France, and like I said, that heat pushing its way southwards into Spain. Here there will be the odd shower around, but generally it's looking fine and sunny, and for many, that's how it's going to be into next week.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
GB News Breakfast, every day from 6 a.m.
Olympian Sharon Davies. Sharon, thanks so much for joining us this morning. I think this is preposterous that we're banning Sports Day for kids, and our viewers are obviously also thinking this is completely bonkers. But is there a case to be made that perhaps we should be looking after young people when the heat is quite extreme in many people's cases, they'll say? What do you think, Sharon?
I think looking after our kids is making them resilient and giving them a sports day. I mean, sport in schools has been relegated year on year on year, and it's so depressing. You know, it's such an important part of young people's lives. Give them a hat, give them some sunscreen, make sure they're drinking plenty of water, stick them in the shade when they're not, actually having a little race. This is all about just kids getting used to life, and wrapping them in cotton wool is not the answer.
The People's Channel. GB News Breakfast, every day from 6 a.m.
The Duke of Sussex has touched down on British soil, but he will not stay at Buckingham Palace during his visit to the UK this week, despite his team saying that he'd accepted an offer to do so. It's all been a bit confusing in the past 24 hours or so.
It's been a bit mental, hasn't it? Well,
Yeah.
Palace officials say Harry initially declined the invitation and then later changed his mind. That's after the deadline had passed, of course, leaving too little notice to make arrangements for him. The Sun and many other newspapers are reporting this morning that the King has been tested beyond endurance over this issue. So obviously quite a lot going on behind the scenes here, let alone this now scuppered attempt at a reconciliation.
And also you've got to remember Prince William is probably saying to his father, I told you so. He's probably saying, I told you this was going to happen.
GB News, the People's Channel. GB News Breakfast, every day from 6 a.m.
Ruth Ellis was executed on the 13th of July 1955. She was convicted of murdering a partner, David Blakely. There's been a long campaign about what to do about all of that. She has now had a conditional pardon, which would mean she would have been sentenced to life rather than sentenced to death. So it's a significant move, but what do her family make of it? Well, her grandson, Stephen Beard, is here alongside solicitor Grace Horton. Good to see you both this morning. I mean, look, from a family perspective, Stephen, what does this mean?
It's huge. It was a monumental day yesterday. In essence, it's the removal of a negative blotch in our family history. We have effectively rewritten history because ultimately, for the last 70-odd years, the truth hasn't been known.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Good afternoon, Britain. Coming up to 10 to 2. Now decolonise yourselves. That's the call from some Caribbean leaders to Britain's remaining possessions in the region, including the British Virgin Islands, the Cayman Islands and Bermuda.
Yes, while the left in Britain cheer so-called independence movements within these territories, could these campaigns have made a spectacular miscalculation?
Yes, could separation from Britain in reality be a deeply regressive move? Well, joining us to discuss this is the former chair of the Commission on Race and Ethnic Disparities, Lord Tony Sewell. Tony, thanks indeed for joining us. Really, really fascinating how so often people say that the progressive thing to do is to split from Britain and go off in a different direction. But you've been writing recently that this is perhaps barking up the wrong path.
Yeah, I don't know if both of you have sunned yourself in the Cayman Islands or Bermuda or British Virgin Islands, but the other thing you can do there is bank. And I think the banking system is a really interesting kind of problem for those islands, because I think that when and a lot of them feel that in many ways that Britain is actually a regulator for their activity. So they have a reputation. You probably see movies where we'll bank our goodies in the Cayman Islands or whatever. And I do think that they don't like it. I mean, a lot of the governors don't like it over there, but it is true that you can do some of this. So my issue is that all of those territories still have and still come under British regulation. If they were to become independent, and really kind of decide that, well, OK, we're going to go our own way, which, by the way, the majority of the people don't want to do that anyway, then you have the danger then of, really they just going off and doing their own thing. And actually, I think they will become worse in terms of illegal money and illegal transactions going on. So I think that it's not wise for us to go down that route. Eventually, I think they may well decide to become independent, but at the moment, not a good idea.
You talk also about the justice system, that some of these territories, if they were independent, might bring back things like the death penalty, which at the moment is not the case.
Yeah. Look, I don't think that they're necessarily tomorrow, if Cayman Islands was independent, suddenly everybody will be hanged. But I do think that there would be the whole issue again of justice, of due process. What we keep beating ourselves up in Britain, we've got to understand that we are the good mother of all those things that make those kind of countries, in a sense, have a legacy that's positive. Now, take that away and you roll easily into dictatorships. And up the road from all of them, the horror story of Haiti and other places looms large. So I do think that it won't be sort of hanging in the streets, but it certainly will be poor justice.
Look, some of Britain's former colonies have gone on to have glittering success. The Singapores, Hong Kongs, United States of this world, Canada, Australia, New Zealand, some of the richest places on the face of the planet because they built those institutions over time. But there are other former British colonies that have frankly been managed horrifically, particularly in sub-Saharan Africa, over the course of the last 50 or 60 years, that have driven themselves into greater poverty, that have not built those institutions. Frankly, independence, if you have the right systems, can lead to prosperity, but more often than not, it's very difficult to build up those institutions, to have that stability, if you're to leave that great sort of stable beacon of individual rights.
Yeah, I think you don't even have to go as far as Africa from the Caribbean. You just have to look within the region itself. And those countries that have independence, I think that it's a good thing for those countries to have had their independence. However, you can look across and you can see incompetence, corruption, poor leadership, no running water in some cases. And I'm talking about places like Jamaica and Trinidad that we think are very well developed. They still have those issues. So independence has not necessarily been a great answer. I just think there's a lot of hypocrisy for those independent Caribbean countries to get up and start saying that, look, over there, they're just jealous because they haven't got the cash. I look over at Cayman Islands, look over these other places, please. And what it is just trying to make Britain the evil mother. So they're saying that basically you guys over there, you're still running a colonial story. So, okay, we're free of this. The others should join us. But remember, none of those countries have asked for this at all.
I mean, Tony, this debate is going to go on and on and on. As you say, it's one of the left's hobby horses. Thank you very much, Lord Tony Sewell. Appreciate your time. Well, this is Good Afternoon Britain. We'll be back very shortly. Let us know your thoughts.
Today, clouds overhead, total zen within. Boxed Solar sponsors the weather on GB News.
Hello and welcome to the latest update from the Met Office for GB News. Another widely sunny and dry day for the vast majority of the United Kingdom. Very warm, if not hot in places. Some cloud in the northeast. Now that's been creeping inland overnight. It will burn back to the coast of eastern Scotland, northeast England through the day, leaving plenty of sunshine with high pressure in control across the United Kingdom. And you can see the widespread sunshine there for most of inland UK, but northern and eastern Scotland, eastern England prone to some of that low cloud persisting around beaches. A fresh breeze coming in from the east, so temperatures at around the mid-20s, I think, on the east coast, but inland, high 20s fairly widely, up to 30 Celsius in one or two spots. Outside chance of a shower reaching the far southwest, otherwise it's simply dry and fine for the vast majority, and you can see some of that patchy cloud affecting eastern Scotland as we go into the evening. Best of the sunshine towards the west. Northern Ireland, 25 degrees for Belfast, a lovely end of the day, having peaked into the high 20s in places. Across a wide swathe of England and Wales, we're still in the high 20s going into the evening. Clear skies. A fresh feel, however. Humidity levels are generally dropping over the next few days. So, yeah, I think more comfortable conditions overnight for many of us. Clear spells for many as well, but we do have that low cloud in the east once again returning, and that will give a few spots of rain and drizzle first thing Friday. Temperatures typically around 13 to 16 Celsius. Then we start off Friday with that low cloud. I think it will affect northern Scotland a bit more compared with Thursday morning. Northern Ireland also prone to some of these low cloud patches. It tends to retreat back to the beaches, but you wouldn't rule out a few light showers into the northeast of Scotland and the odd shower bubbling up across the southwest peninsula. Otherwise, it's dry, sunny and very warm once again.
Today, clouds overhead, total zen within. Boxed Solar sponsors the weather on GB News.
It's a great British giveaway Golden Summer Celebration. Your chance to win 2 fantastic prizes. There's an incredible £60,000 in tax-free cash. Plus, you'll also get your hands on a fine gold bar worth over £5,000. For a chance to win £60,000 in tax-free cash and a real gold bar, text GOLD to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus 1 standard network rate message. Or text BONUS to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus 1 standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entry start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB22 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 21st of August. This is a network giveaway. Entries will be pulled. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand.
Do you trust what you're being told? Good, because neither do I.
Those are just facts.
I'm Alex Armstrong, and on my show, we'll expose the spin.
Well, I want to answer that because you didn't let me last time, because you always speak over me.
The broken promises.
To deny that is denying the truth.
And the hypocrisy.
Needs to
stop.
You think we can allow?
Politics, policy, parliament. Nothing is off limits. No sugarcoating, no fear of offence, just the truth laid bare. Tune in every Saturday and Sunday at 9 p.m. for Alex Armstrong Tonight, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
As soon as it hits 11 and the headlines come in,
The Late Edition brings you the breaking news from all the front pages.
because the news is going to happen.
So get a head start today.
Patrick Christie's Tonight, Late Edition.
Alex Armstrong Tonight, Late Edition. From 11 o'clock every night.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I've been in Westminster for a long time, but I know that though power may be here, its effect on people's lives is across the whole of the country. We may be where rules are made, but it's where they're implemented that matters. Join me, Jacob Rees-Mogg, for forthright and frank discussion on where Britain has come from, where it's going, and where it will end up. That's State of the Nation, Monday to Thursday, 8 to 9 o'clock. Vox Populi, Vox Dei.
From cold mornings
to warm family brunches,
from football to tennis in the car,
in the kitchen.
GB News Breakfast is there. With the stories you need and the conversations that matter.
Anyway, let's talk business.
Well, it has been a historic night in British politics.
It's astonishing, isn't it?
We're here again.
To start your day just right. GB News Breakfast.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on GB News.
Britain's news channel.
Good afternoon, Britain. It's 2 o'clock on Thursday, the 16th of July. I'm Tom Harwood.
And I'm Emily Carver. Residents living near a migrant camp in Crowborough say they're taking security into their own hands, spending thousands of their own money on cameras, fencing and community patrols. We're on the ground live as local people fight back.
Meanwhile, Downing Street has backed a minister's call for FIFA to investigate whether Argentinian players broke rules by waving a banner in support of their country's false claims to our Falkland Islands, saying the World Cup might not be ours, but the Falkland Islands definitely are.
Now, on what could be Starmer's final U-turn, the government has paused planned changes to pay cuts, which were planned for coastguards.
The PM drops plans to pay for our heroic Coast Guard staff on the coast of the UK in his 15th and probably final U-turn. He stands down as Labour leader tomorrow and, of course, ends his time as Premier on Monday.
A family of 18 from Gaza has won the right to come to Britain after launching a human rights challenge in British courts.
Well, if you want to work, earn good money and have a good life, you need to go to the UK. They don't deport anyone there. Well, those are the words of a so-called travel agency in Iraq. We'll discuss.
He was a kind and generous human being, and we are all so devastated that she has been taken from us. Now let's reflect on Anne's remarkable life.
Well, the former Prime Minister Liz Truss fought back tears as she led those tributes to Anne Widdecombe at the new Conservative Political Action Conference in London today. We're there live.
And, well, living up to his nickname, Never Hear Keir, the outgoing Prime Minister will use his last day meeting President Zelensky in Kyiv as he embarks on one final trip to Ukraine in his last days in office. But is he after a cushy new diplomatic job? NATO? The UN? Yeah, so this is human rights legislation again in action, Tom. A family of 18 from Gaza. They've won the right to come to Britain. This is a mother of 3 who had arrived in the UK as a refugee. She was initially refused permission to bring in her extended family by the Home Office. So the Home Office said, absolutely not, you can't do this. However, as always happens in these cases, an immigration tribunal overturned that decision, ruling she could bring all of her relatives to Britain, claiming that otherwise it would breach her rights to a family life under the ECHR, which is the European Convention on Human Rights. Now, this is her parents, a brother, his wife, 4 children, a sister, her 4 children, another sister, her husband, and 3 children. So 18 people have been allowed in because this woman arrived in this country. A right to a family life means
you can bring your entire extended family to this country.
Now, a lot of people will say conditions are terrible in Gaza. We should open our hearts and our borders to these people.
That's a political decision to make.
But the Home Office have pushed back on this. It should be up to the Home Office to decide, surely, not these courts who seem to be able to just use this right to family life to such extreme lengths.
I mean, it is extraordinary. I mean, do you think that Winston Churchill, when helping draft the original European Convention rights, really imagined such a thing as this?
I mean, it is crazy, and also, I'm sorry, but I think it is dangerous to our national security to just take extended members of family, apparently some of them don't even speak a word of English, from a war zone where there is a lot of support for terrorist groups, where there is a lot of anti-Semitism. It's a dangerous place in the world, and I just very much worry that this will mean that, well, as Chris Philp, the Shadow Home Secretary, has said, that this will open the door for thousands alike. Now, the government will say that they're trying to tighten up these kind of family, what do they call them? Not family renewal, family...
reunification.
Reunification rules. But this just shows the courts are in charge. The courts are in charge. Anyway, let us know. Yes, a family of 18.
Well, what do you think? GBNews.com/your say is, as ever, the way to get involved. We'll get to all of that and more after your latest news headlines.
Thank you both, and good afternoon to you. At 4 minutes past 2, Downing Street has backed calls for FIFA to investigate Argentina's players after they held up a banner supporting their country's claim to the Falkland Islands. It came after England's World Cup dream ended last night in a 2-1 semi-final defeat. Tributes have been pouring in for the Three Lions tournament's run, with Prince of Wales saying he was gutted but proud, while Sir Keir Starmer praised the team's passion, their energy and fight. Argentina will now face Spain in Sunday's final. Well, earlier, Shadow Minister Andrew Griffith told us that Argentina's players were wrong and said that politics should be kept separate from football.
FIFA in the past have fined Britain for wearing poppies on their shirts. They've suspended Spanish players when they called for Gibraltar to be part of Spain. So action this day from FIFA, whether it's fines or suspensions. This cannot wait until the end of the tournament. It is incredibly important that they send that signal that this behaviour was unacceptable. Fair enough, unfortunately, we lost tonight, but democracy and self-determination can't be the losers.
Sir Keir Starmer has rejected claims that Ukraine is draining European security, insisting that Kyiv has helped protect the continent. The outgoing Prime Minister met Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky in Kyiv just hours after Russian strikes killed 2 people and injured 6 others. Sir Keir said that Britain's support for Ukraine will not waver and that Andy Burnham's arrival in number 10 would not change the UK's backing. He was also awarded Ukraine's Order of Freedom, that is the country's highest honour for a foreign national, saying it meant a huge amount. Well, speaking alongside Volodymyr Zelensky, the outgoing Prime Minister said that Ukraine had pushed back one of the world's biggest armies with guts and ingenuity.
Anyone who thinks that Ukraine is somehow a drain on European security is just plain wrong. The truth is, Ukraine's stand has preserved European security. It is now one of the most battle-hardened, tech-savvy, creative military forces in the world. It is a net contributor to our collective security and the best ally that we could hope to have.
2 young hackers have each been jailed for 5 years and 6 months after admitting a major cyber attack on Transport for London. 18-year-old Owen Flowers and 20-year-old Tala Jaber caused £29 million in losses and forced TfL to shut down parts of its own systems. The court heard the pair reached the highest level of access in the system and could have caused catastrophic damage. And the Home Secretary says she is taking urgent action to hold MI5 to account after a report found false evidence was given to courts. The investigation found serious failings by individual MI5 officers and criticised the security service as an organisation. It centred on a case involving a violent extremist informant where courts were misled about how the security service had handled key information. MI5's Director General has now apologised for the incorrect evidence, saying the agency fell well short of what the public expects and deserves. Those are the latest headlines this hour. More news later, but first it's back to Tom and Emily.
Wow, good afternoon, Britain. It's 8 minutes past 2. And now to a quite simply incredible story. A family of 18 from Gaza has been given the right to come to Britain after winning a human rights case against the government.
Yes, the case was brought by a mother of 3 who was born in Gaza but came to the UK as a refugee and is now a British citizen. So initially, the permission to grant... the permission to bring her extended family was refused by the Home Office point blank. However, they obviously appealed the ECHR in an immigration tribunal, and that allowed the right to family life. So now this woman's extended family, which includes her parents, a brother, his wife and 4 children, a sister and her 4 children, and another sister, her husband, and 3 children. So you see how the numbers rack up.
Now, the government is trying to change these rules so that it can only mean the immediate family, that courts can only consider an absolute core nuclear family when it comes to right to a family life. This seems to be the largest taking of the mick of this particular ECHR right that I think I've ever read about. 18 people. One person comes in, gains citizenship, can then become a magnet for reunification of 18 more. The government's tried to stop it, but they haven't been able to. I mean, this has gone through the courts and fought back against Shabana Mahmood and what she was trying to do to stop this. It seems like the government's just not in control.
Absolutely. I mean, Chris Philp, the Shadow Home Secretary, has spoken out on this one. He says it risks opening the floodgates to thousands of Palestinians claiming asylum in the UK. Why should immigrants be allowed to ship in their entire extended family to the UK? The Home Secretary must urgently appeal this shameful decision to a higher court. We can't have open borders with huge numbers of migrants exploiting human rights laws, etc., etc. But that's what we have. This is not the only case of its kind. There have been so many of these similar cases. Shall we bring in Aisha Ali Khan, who's with us on this one? Because I know what a lot of people will say. Gaza is a war zone. The conditions are awful. Many people would be better off in this country. But the Home Office, fundamentally, surely should have the right to decide who enters this country.
I think, Emily, you've pointed out, rightly so, that for the last 3.5 years, what's been going on in Gaza has been horrific. We've obviously had this war. We've had people displaced. Majority of Gaza has been razed. There's nothing for them to go back to. Women and children, vulnerable adults have been living in horrific conditions, in tents, winter after winter. And so this is a really rare case, by the way. I don't know many other families who've been able to come to the UK, Gazans, come to the UK, actually gain British citizenship and then able to call their family members. But I do feel that if we're going to
happened
take...
a huge amount with the social care and social care visas.
That wasn't through citizenship, though.
Yeah.
That was...
No, but they were able to have family come over.
But that was obviously workers, people that were working and so on. But I just want to remind our viewers of the Homes for Ukraine, when the war started, when obviously after the invasion by Russia, and there was no limit on family members coming to the UK. We had, hundreds of thousands of Ukrainians who came to the UK. Some have gone back as well, and some are settled and
but
earning and so on.
The difference there, that was a political decision. That was a scheme set up by the government, voted for by politicians, with democratic consent. Now, there is a completely legitimate debate to be had about whether we should take refugees from Gaza. But the fact is that that debate has not been had by our politicians. We have not decided on a policy of it. And is there not a worry here that democratic institutions get undermined when the courts sort of presuppose what the policy should be over and ahead of the politicians?
Look, Tom, I agree. We've not had a debate on this the way we did with Ukraine, and why not? I mean, this is something that, what we've done is treat a different nation, Ukraine, completely differently. People fleeing war from, to what's happening in Gaza, and obviously we've seen footage of people the way they've lived in Gaza, what has happened.
It is a humanitarian catastrophe, and yet it is more complicated because Ukraine didn't start their war. Hamas did start the war against Israel.
The majority of the victims of the genocide in Gaza, they didn't start. They were not responsible for what happened on 7th of October.
It's so different when Ukraine is a Western-aligned, democratic nation-state with burgeoning democratic norms and a sort of peaceful society. Gaza is difficult because Gaza has elected the terrorist organisation Hamas into leadership. They did back in 2006, I think it was.
20 years ago.
Yeah.
And the people that have been affected by the genocide, they had no say in these elections, like you said, 20 years ago. In fact, they've suffered just as much.
Yeah,
as
but hang on, how do we
else.
know that people coming, if we open the doors to people from Gaza, that they won't hold those very same views as some of the Hamas terrorists running the show?
But
how do we not know that? Surely our Home Office first duty is to keep people in this country safe, not to open the doors to people from potentially very dangerous parts of the world who may have very different ideas and social cultural norms.
Sadly, that's the kind of
I don't want
mindset
that danger.
Absolutely.
A lot of people don't.
Absolutely, but we're talking about women and children. We're talking about children...
We're talking about husbands. We're talking about, children that turn into adults.
In this case, yes. But let's have a look at what's going on a humanitarian ground, on the ground in Gaza right now. People, they've got nowhere to go. They're living in tents. Medicine, food, baby stuff just being blocked completely. And they're starving. These are people that are starving.
I completely agree that
there should be some way
I would push back on the genocide claim. That has not been proven.
It's been proven. It's been claimed it's a genocide.
I will say that, of course, people know there's a humanitarian crisis.
Genocide.
The question is whether opening our doors in this country, when we already have an absolutely massive asylum backlog, when we already have people suffering with the cost of living in this country already, when we don't have enough money for veterans, for homeless people, for people who are finding it hard to survive day in, day out, whether opening the doors to people from a very dangerous conflict zone is a good idea for the rest of the British people. We'll have to park that for now. But thank you very much indeed, Aisha.
I think we should be able to bring people here to safety. We're a civilised nation.
How many, though, Aisha Ali Khan? We can all throw our arms open. There are 2 million people, aren't there, in Gaza? Would you say, all of them?
Well, actually, there's been a massive genocide, so like 60,000 people have been killed, and definitely allow children, definitely allow women to come, people that need medical...
OK, but that's a lot to ask
on whether or not there is a genocide, which would require
we could talk about this, but there is a genocide.
OK, in your opinion, a lot of people would dispute that heavily. But we're going to move on, because we may be in the very last days of the Starmer premiership, but there could be one more U-turn on its way. In fact, I believe it's a fait accompli.
Well, let's speak to Christopher Hope, our political editor, about all of this to explain more. Chris.
That's Tom and Emily. Yes. This government's been known for its U-turns. I think a fair reading of U-turns has been 14 of them since the Prime Minister took over in July 2024. Local election dates, mandatory digital ID, winter fuel payments, welfare and PIP reforms, two-child benefit cap, even the grooming gangs inquiry, all have seen areas of covering those policy areas U-turned by this government. And what better way to mark nearly the end of this Prime Minister in power and as Labour leader. He finishes, of course, Labour leader tomorrow and Prime Minister on Monday, than a 15th and probably final U-turn. This one covers around 3,000 Coast Guard officers, Coast Guard rescue officers, CROs they're called, around the country. They're normally paid about £11 an hour, just £11 an hour, to drop things wherever they are in the country and then jump on lifeboats and save lives at sea. A vital role. If you call 999 when you're on the coast this summer, it'll be the Coast Guard who come to look after you and to see if you're okay. These are volunteers, often at home, mums and dads dealing with issues at home, and they drop everything if their pager goes off. In some cases, they got dogs at home. The dogs put themselves to bed. Families are well drilled for these dramas. They are paid £11 an hour, but the government was looking at dropping that altogether and pay them expenses from September. Well, that's been dropped today by the government. There's been lots of concern from the Coast Guard community, led by Joe Robertson, the Conservative MP in the Isle of Wight. He's expressed those concerns on GBNews, notably on our breakfast show. And now we have a U-turn from Keir Mather, who was a Transport Minister. He says he's listened to the views and testimonies of Coast Guard rescue officers and how these changes might affect them, and they've heard firsthand the impact of the changes. He says that when they looked at doing it in the first place, they did a survey of staff, and they now believe that wasn't sufficiently detailed, they say, to properly reflect the impact of these changes. And therefore, the government says today, I can therefore confirm that plans to move to the expense-only volunteer model in September will not go ahead, and current arrangements will remain in place. This is obviously a small area of government, 3,000 Coast Guard officers, but vitally important to anyone in trouble at sea, and they will be being paid for their time from September rather than on an expenses regime. You might think £11 an hour isn't enough. Well, I would agree with you, but as things stand, that's what they're getting. There we have it, the 15th U-turn by the Labour government, and Keir Starmer's not left yet.
Although he's currently out of the country, so left, I suppose it's open to interpretation as to what the word left means. Just while we have you, Chopper, a 50th visit abroad in his final full day as Labour Party leader, final few full days as Prime Minister. It's quite clear, isn't it, that Keir Starmer prefers being sort of on these international junkets than perhaps in the building behind you?
Well, to a degree, Tom. I think he likes being overseas. He said as much in an interview with the Newsagents podcast in, I think, February 2024 in Davos, for first Davos and world leaders to the Westminster, because he's not very good at actual politics of talking to people, winning people round, knowing who people are. He's always been a judge's lawyer, used to convincing 3 judges of a case rather than a jury lawyer. I'm not good at convincing 12 members of the public of an argument. That's where he is as an individual. I do think, therefore, he has travelled a lot. I do think, though, the job that Prime Ministers have nowadays is more than it used to be, because we've brought back on, we've onshored all of those powers that the European Union had. 30% of our laws were just decided in Brussels. No longer. It's all in the UK, in Westminster. So I think you're seeing Prime Minister has got to be more bilateral meetings, go and meet world leaders and be on it all the time rather than not travel so much. But yeah, I think he does enjoy travelling. He has done 50 trips, as you say there. But I think the job now, the post-Brexit Britain job that Prime Ministers have, requires overseas travel. Andy Berman will find that when he takes over. He thinks he can work it out with some domestic policy plan. I think foreign affairs will soon take over, and that could be what defines him too.
Yeah, and we've got to find out what Andy Burnham thinks about policy from listening to Gary Lineker's podcast. I mean, it's crazy. Christopher Hope, I'll have to leave it there, but thank you very much indeed, our political editor in Westminster, for us.
Well, our very own Patrick Christys is in Crowborough today in other news, speaking to residents living near a migrant camp.
Yes, because the residents say they're taking security into their own hands now, spending thousands on cameras, fencing and community patrols.
Well, the one and only Patrick Christys is there for us live in Crowborough. Patrick, what have you found today?
Well, it's been absolutely astonishing. In fact, the reason why I'm right here now is that we're on a road just outside the camp, and these illegal migrants are not detained, so they can come and go. And we've actually just done really quite a lengthy interview with a young man from Afghanistan, a professional MMA fighter who took a small boat into Britain about 2 weeks ago, who's found himself in this camp and then has been told that he will be getting a house of multiple occupancy in the next 3 months or so. So that was fascinating. You'll be able to see that interview on my show 9 to 11 p.m. But I am joined now by Peter, who is an independent town councillor in this area. Peter, thank you so much for joining us today. Now, I know that you've got certain gripes, haven't you, about the fact that this camp is here. Do you want to just quite quickly run through exactly what they are?
Well, the first thing is that the camp was established without any reference to the Crowborough Town Council or to the people. It was imposed on us, and we have had considerable problems with the Home Office in terms of accountability, in terms of communication, and in terms of the way that they operate within the camp.
OK, all right. And some of the issues as well in terms of what it's done to the community, I think, is quite an important point to get across.
Yes, I mean, the first thing that happened was that a large number of people were very worried and scared. So what's happened is we've had weekly protest marches, but initially we had public meetings that I was asked to attend, and I have never been in a public meeting where so many people were looking at me with such fury and anger.
From what angle, sorry? From what side?
Well, just because I was there.
Because as a town councillor,
yeah,
and they thought you were responsible for this?
That was this sort of inference. It wasn't said, but the fact that I was there, I was the man in charge, therefore it's your fault.
But you said something to me just as we were walking down there, which is that very often the way things are going, you find out about what's happening in your area when people like me call you to get a response about it.
That's absolutely true. The first thing I knew about the camp coming up was a phone call at stupid o'clock in the morning from the Daily Telegraph. So we don't, as a town council, don't get told anything about what's going on, and that means that we as a town council get all the flack because the people know what's going on before we do.
It also affects your budget, doesn't it, and taxpayers' money?
It certainly does. At the present moment, we're about £60,000 down, and that's £60,000 that we're not spending on the people of Crowborough. We are what is called a super council. We've got a £2 million plus budget, and we spend most of that on the services and the things that the council does, cemeteries, things like that.
So it's been allocated, basically.
It's all been allocated. So when you get £60 coming from left field, it's not in the budget, so we have to rob Peter to pay Paul in order to fund that.
Yeah.
We also get the problem where the officers get a lot of flack from the council, from the public as well, and that's really unfair because they cannot defend themselves. We get elected, and as elected members, we are supposed to take a bit of flack if necessary, but the officers aren't, and that's not fair.
But also not really when it's your fault, and there's nothing you can do about it, to be fair. But there we go. Peter, thank you very much. It's been an absolute pleasure. I know we're going to continue to talk because I've got my show. Again, I'll say it live this evening, 9 to 11 p.m. We've had a fascinating day here. We've been speaking to people like Peter. We've been speaking to quite a few of the people who are actually in that camp as well. And some of the things they say are very, very revealing indeed. Back to you.
Of this, there's actually, Patrick, less money for the residents of Crowborough who are paying their council taxes and the like.
Oh, yeah.
So, yeah, everyone's quality of life.
They've lost money. Everything that they had in their budget was allocated. Yeah.
OK, well, Patrick, thank you very much indeed.
We'll be
That's
tuning
nice,
in
isn't
at
it?
9 o'clock this evening, live on GB News for more. This is Good Afternoon Britain on GB News. Lots more coming up on today's show.
Well, if you want to work, earn good money and have a good life, you need to go to the UK. They don't deport anyone. Yes, those are the words of a so-called travel agency in Iraq.
Well, we'll discuss that and more. You're with GB News, Britain's #1 news channel.
Bowl.
They are under no illusion.
Ray. Are you a human trafficker? Boundless. I've had enough of the nonsense, and I'm not afraid to say it.
Don't get this on the BBC.
Every weeknight, I tear through the headlines.
The smell of gasoline. Should we be worried about it?
From Westminster madness to cultural war chaos. What I'm going to do now is they are throwing things up the car as we speak. Get ready, Britain. Here we go. Patrick Christie's tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
At the stroke of midnight, the news doesn't stop, and neither do we.
Day in, day out. Forget stuffy late night TV shows. We're giving you a front row ticket to the centre of the political universe.
Because breaking news doesn't wait for the morning.
And neither do we. Join us for one of the most controversial and volatile times of politics in human history.
A very big story.
Big story over here.
You won't get this anywhere else. The Late Show live at midnight, every night.
Only on GB News.
Here at GB News, we made a promise to tell your stories.
And on the 6th of August, we're marking 5 years of doing exactly that.
Celebrate with us by having your say. Join in the debates live on TV and radio.
And meeting your favourite presenters across the country, from Leeds to Aberdeen, from Belfast to Barry Island.
Plus, join me in Essex for our biggest live show of the year. Scan the QR code or visit gbnews.com/celebrate. Terms and conditions apply.
Good afternoon, Britain. It's 28 minutes past 2. Now, need we all need reminding? Probably not, actually. It was a heartbreaking night for England as the Three Lions were knocked out of the World Cup by the defending champions, Argentina, last night.
Yes, we were 5 minutes away from a World Cup final, but conceded 2 late goals, which was pretty depressing, to be honest.
Yeah, there was controversy following the final whistle as the Argentine players held up a banner that translates to the Falkland Islands are Argentinian, which of course they aren't. There's a secondary issue with that banner. It breaks FIFA's rules on political slogans.
Well, yes, Downing Street have come out swinging. They're backing a call for FIFA to investigate whether Argentine players broke rules by waving this banner. And they say, the government that is, the World Cup might not be ours, but the Falkland Islands definitely are.
Well, let's speak now to the podcast host, Sunil Sharma. Sunil, what do you make of this particular egregious display from the Argentine players?
Yes, it's disgraceful. I think if you followed the World Cup for the last few weeks, I'm actually not too surprised that the Argentinian players held up the banner that they did. You know, the echoing sentiment of the Argentinian military government in 1982, who were heavily corrupt, who acted illegally, immorally. And if you watch Argentina this tournament, they've acted the exact same way. And I know I may sound a bit bitter after yesterday's defeat, but I don't think it's just English fans who would be saying that. You know, Egypt felt the exact same way. In fact, their manager was so angry about what happened in his game that he accused FIFA and Argentina of being corrupt. He refuses to watch any more games this World Cup, and many of the Egyptian players said the same thing. So there has been that feeling throughout this tournament that the way Argentina have acted and behaved has been immoral and bordering corruption, or in fact, maybe there is some corruption there. And it's not something that just English fans are saying, it's pretty much universal across various different nations. So I think it's a really bad, even further bad look for Argentina for the way they behaved post that game, during the game. But again, I'm not too surprised that they did act in the way they did.
Yeah, I mean, it was a dirty match too. Definitely, certainly. Shocking at times, I would say. Sunil, do you have any faith that FIFA will sort this one out?
No, zero. I mean, the problem thing for FIFA is, you know, they need to protect their biggest asset, their biggest marketing product, their biggest commercial product, which is Messi. So I don't think they will really. I'm sure they'll maybe do some sort of pointless fine in relation to Argentina, but I doubt they will actually act. What they should do, because this has happened before, Spanish players, Rodri had came out and he said Gibraltar is Spain's. Essentially, he got a one-match ban following that. So technically, the players who held that banner, if they want to be consistent, should also get a ban. But that would mean those players missed the World Cup final, which you can almost guarantee FIFA will not do. And I'm sure Argentina won't allow it to happen. But Yeah, very frustrating. What I think happened yesterday, and again, like this political slogan, it should be a big deal. 10 Downing Street should make a point about it, because you don't want there to be that sort of double standards, which we have seen often, e.g. in the Premier League, when it comes to the Pride captain's armband, where players have to wear the captain's armband. If they don't, then there's a whole hoo-ha about that. And so I think that there has to be some consistency. And I think that's what most football fans want to see, is consistency.
Yeah, and that's been sorely lacking. Well, Sunil Sharma, thanks indeed for joining us and talking through just the very latest FIFA controversy.
Yeah, those England fans weren't even allowed to bring in their local club flag because it had a little tiny submarine in the corner.
Goodness me.
And then you see the Argentinians doing that. Anyway, this is Good Afternoon Britain on GB News. Lots more coming up.
Was it yellow, the submarine? Anyway, if you want to work, earn good money, have a good life, you need to go to the UK. They don't deport anyone. Yes, those are the words of a so-called travel agency inviting Iraqis to illegally migrate to Britain. We'll discuss.
You're with GB News, Britain's news channel.
Hello and welcome to the latest update from the Met Office for GB News. Another widely sunny and dry day for the vast majority of the United Kingdom. Very warm, if not hot in places. Some cloud in the northeast. Now that's been creeping inland overnight. It will burn back to the coast of eastern Scotland, northeast England through the day, leaving plenty of sunshine with high pressure in control across the United Kingdom. And you can see the widespread sunshine there for most of inland UK, but northern and eastern Scotland, eastern England prone to some of that low cloud persisting around beaches. A fresh breeze coming in from the east, so temperatures at around the mid-20s, I think, on the east coast, but inland high 20s fairly widely, up to 30 Celsius in one or two spots. Outside chance of a shower reaching the far southwest, otherwise it's simply dry and fine for the vast majority, and you can see some of that patchy cloud affecting eastern Scotland as we go into the evening. Best of the sunshine towards the west. Northern Ireland, 25 degrees for Belfast. A lovely end of the day, having peaked into the high 20s in places. Across a wide swathe of England and Wales, we're still in the high 20s going into the evening. Clear skies. A fresh feel, however. Humidity levels are generally dropping over the next few days. So, yeah, I think more comfortable conditions overnight for many of us. Clear spells for many as well. But we do have that low cloud in the east once again returning. And that will give a few spots of rain and drizzle first thing Friday. Temperatures typically around 13 to 16 Celsius. Then we start off Friday with that low cloud. I think it will affect northern Scotland a bit more compared with Thursday morning. Northern Ireland also prone to some of these low cloud patches. It tends to retreat back to the beaches, but you wouldn't rule out a few light showers into the northeast of Scotland and the odd shower bubbling up across the southwest peninsula. Otherwise, it's dry, sunny and very warm once again.
Thank you, Britain, for all of you who listen to GB News Radio.
Whether you're at home or on the go, you're making us Britain's news channel and Britain's radio station.
Good afternoon. This is the latest AI travel news from gbnews.com. There is a collision on the M20 eastbound between junctions 5 and 6 in Aylesford, causing slow traffic. The A272 is closed at junction 9 in Winchester. The M25 anti-clockwise between junctions 21 and 20 in Kings Langley has a collision causing delays. North of the border, the A720 westbound between the A7 Sheriff Hall roundabout and the A68 Miller Hill junction has lane restrictions causing queues. And on the trains, Chiltern Railways are disrupted between Birmingham Snow Hill and Leamington Spa. For more travel news, go to gbnews.com.
Good afternoon, Britain. It's now 36 minutes past 2. And it's been reported people smugglers are talking about Britain like a travel agent peddling a package holiday.
Yeah, if you want to work, earn good money, have a good life, you need to go to the UK. They don't deport anyone. That's the crucial point, really, isn't it?
Yeah, and that's what was said by one of these so-called agencies out in Iraq. Let's speak now to the special correspondent at the Daily Mail, David Patrikarakos. Because, David, it's fairly extraordinary, the language these, for want of a better word, agencies are using.
Well, absolutely. I mean, I think it's probably a bit of rhetoric. I mean, we must stress Britain does deport people. There's just an issue in that there are huge waves of illegal migration coming into Britain now that we don't seem able to stop. And look, a fundamental precept or basis of a nation state, of a sovereign state, is to be able to enforce its borders. Look, there's something else we have to think about, which is, look, immigration is actually a normal part of states. But what we're talking about over recent years, perhaps decades, is really unprecedented numbers, for which there is no electoral mandate by any government. This is not about policy, it's not about ideology, this is about simply enforcing the law. Look, I am, I guess, by trade a war correspondent. I have sympathy with people who are fleeing war. But there are legal means in which to do this. And as I've seen, there are many people coming who, even if they come from a war zone, which many don't, as soon as they're out of that country, they are technically have refuge from that war. By the time they go through 4, 5, 6 or 7 countries into Britain illegally, they are no longer refugees, they're economic migrants. Now, there is a case to be made for that, but it's not the same thing. So what I think we're facing, and I think people know, is quite a serious crisis. And I want to stress, this is about enforcing the law. It's not about politics, actually. If you want to come to this country, you can do so legally. Look, I come from an immigrant background. My parents came to this country legally. There are ways and means. And right now, as I saw firsthand in many parts of the world, this is not happening, and it's a serious problem that people are angry about it.
Yeah, and is it the most vulnerable people who are using these sort of people smuggling travel agencies? I mean, how much are these people paying to make the move to the UK?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think, look, there are a lot of vulnerable people who do it because they club together, their whole family sell everything. But equally at the same time, and I've been to, the Calais jungle, I've been to the Greek islands where many congregate, and it is a mixed bag. And I would point out that in almost all of the places that I've seen firsthand, not from an armchair in London pontificating about it, it seems to be 80 or 90% young men. So, that's something we have to look at as well. I do I do sometimes, but it's overwhelmingly single males making this journey. So, yes, I've seen people who are wretched, who are vulnerable, and let's be honest, who are being exploited by these people smugglers. That's another thing. By refusing to enforce the law, we enable the worst kind of people to smuggle others. Very often many will die, children will die in the crossing. From start to finish, it's a serious problem, and one that we need to get a grip on, because it creates problems internally as well. It creates strife within the country. It creates the rise of extremists. And it's a massive problem because we have a load of people coming into this country, a lot of military-aged males, and we don't know who they are.
We often say that there are sort of pull factors, whether that's the kind of benefits they'll get if they come to the United Kingdom, kind of taxpayer-funded accommodation. But really, there is one significant pull factor above all others, which is as soon as you can get to the British half of the English Channel, as soon as you get a centimetre over that halfway point, you can throw yourself overboard or call in for distress, and we will be legally obliged to pick you up, bring you to our shores, at which point you have every legal right to claim asylum and we can't kick you out. I mean, that has been the junket that has been running for the best part of a decade now, and it is still being wantonly boasted about, advertised, as you have found, in so many parts of the world. Why haven't politicians changed the law in order to stop that one fundamental loophole to get into Britain?
Well, I think that fundamental loophole has to do with European law over national law. So I think in order to try and reverse that, we're going to have to do some things like getting out of the ECHR, which many people advocate for. Look, you're absolutely right. It is a legal nightmare and a legal absurdity. Now, obviously, if someone hurls themselves into the water and we have the means to stop them from drowning, we have to do it. That's not the issue. The issue is, as you say, they're exploiting this. This needs to get, we need to get a hold of this. And the point is, everyone knows the problem. And, there is a huge majority in the country to do something about it. But, politicians will not act. Everything I've heard from Andy Burnham on, not on this subject per se, leads me to believe that he's not going to act either. The problem's going to get worse. The people are going to get angrier. This can only be kicked down the road for so long until, to mix a metaphor, it's going to explode.
Yeah, and talking about the European Convention on Human Rights, I hope you don't mind if I pivot you onto a breaking news story today, that a family of 18 from Gaza has now won the right to come to Britain under human rights legislation. So a Gaza mother came over here seeking asylum, and the Home Office said no initially to bringing her extended family, but then went to the ECHR and they're all allowed to come over. Extended family, 17 relatives.
Yeah, and look, this is a problem. I'll move back a bit. This is a problem. Forget the family per se. It's a problem that we made a decision nationally, and it was overruled by a court, across the water. This cannot stand, and I see the Labour government appears to be supporting this quite strongly, which is foolish. They're not even going to vote Labour if they ever get citizenship. They'll only vote for the Greens. So the whole thing is pointless from a Labour point of view as well. This is a problem. We don't know who these people are. And again, look, why are these people not getting asylum in some of the neighbouring countries to Gaza? Egypt, Jordan have been at pains to say this is a genocide, which it isn't, and yet none of them will take any of these refugees. So we have to. The whole thing is absurd, and as I say, it creates problems at the level of national cohesion. It creates problems at the level of the economy, because who's going to pay for 18 people? And it creates problems politically because the British people are getting angry and nasty elements are rising, elements that I completely distance myself from because they're outrageous. But fundamentally, this is the problem in microcosm. First of all, we have an economic issue now with the big family, but fundamentally, we made a decision nationally that was overruled supranationally, and we have to live with it. That does not seem just or fair, and neither it does it to the British people.
And as you say, David, the government was overruled by the courts in this instance. We are yet to hear if the government is going to appeal this case. I know the Conservative Party is pushing for an appeal to be launched, which is still possible. And of course, Shabana Mahmood would say, well, she tried to stop it happening, but the courts got in the way. David Petrokarakos, thanks indeed for joining us and talking through this, these two astonishing stories.
Yeah, I mean, just all of these decisions that are made then make it easier for future decisions to be made and for the Home Office to lose again and again and again and again. But there you go, let us know your thoughts. Today the government has announced, though, yes, they're saying that nearly 1,100 migrants have been returned to France since the launch of the government's one-in, one-out deal. That's according to figures.
Yeah, what does that account for? About 2 to 3% of people who've come over in the last 12 months? Well, the agreement between the UK and France came into force on the 6th of August 2025. Under the terms of the deal, France agreed to accept the return of individuals who had crossed the English Channel into Britain illegally, although they maintained the right to reject any individual they thought was a bit too prickly. Yes. And in exchange, the same number of approved asylum seekers would be transferred from France to Britain. So we end up on evens.
Yes, they haven't told us about the numbers coming back. I mean, have they done
it'll be equal and opposite, right?
Yeah, but has it been? And who are they? It'd be nice to know, wouldn't it?
Yeah. Well, this is Good Afternoon Britain on GB News. Lots more still to come.
She was a kind and generous human being, and we are all so devastated that she has been taken from us. Now let's reflect on Anne's remarkable life.
Yes, that's the former Prime Minister Liz Truss fighting back tears as she led tributes to Anne Widdecombe at the Conservative Political Action Conference in London today. We're going to be there live.
But before all then, let's see if there's any sunshine anywhere on the continent. Here's the weather in Europe.
Ready to soak up that holiday sunshine?
Won't we need some cover?
No worries. All sorted.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
The heat across parts of Europe has been a big talking point through recent weeks. Currently, there's hot air across France, but that's edging southwards through the next few days. There are some showery bursts of rain, perhaps some rumbles of thunder across Greece tomorrow. It's hot across Italy, lots of sunshine here. Outbreaks of rain for parts of France, and like I said, that heat pushing its way southwards into Spain. Here there will be the odd shower around, but generally it's looking fine and sunny, and for many, that's how it's going to be into next week.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
Britain's Newsroom. Weekday mornings from 9:30.
Well, we're joined now by another two brutal commentators, Jonathan Liss and Emma Trimble, here in the studio to go through the day's news. Good morning, both of you. Let's start with this
pub opening all through the night on Monday. I mean, great news for pub landlords. We've just spoken to one, but not necessarily such great news for the police, Emma, who aren't so impressed with this idea.
True, although in the 11th hour it seems that Keir Starmer's finally figured out how to do something popular. I mean, if he could allow them to open until 5 a.m. around, not just for the football, but throughout the year, I think that would be, as in many European countries, it'd be really good for hospitality. I'm sure it will lead to maybe some drunken, disorderly behaviour.
Depends if we win or lose.
Come on, the police don't actually bother to police proper crimes anyway, it seems, so I'm sure.
Well, GB News, the People's Channel. This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
It was the daring rescue mission that shocked the world. 50 years ago, 102 hostages were rescued in a deadly siege following a week-long crisis that began with the hijacking of Air France Flight 139. 248 people boarded the flight from Tel Aviv to Paris, with a stopover in Athens to pick up more passengers. Among those passengers were 4 armed pro-Palestinian terrorists. 8 minutes after takeoff, the terrorists hijacked the plane and forced the pilot to fly to Uganda's Entebbe airport. There, the notorious dictator Idi Amin and his troops were waiting to assist the attackers to hold the passengers hostage.
I've been telephoned several telephone calls from Tel Aviv talking to me since I cut off relationship with Israel.
GB News, the People's Channel. This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
How are you? Great to see you. Listen, how are the bags?
Great to see you.
How are the bags under the eyes? It's been a long night for you as well as us, right?
Yeah, they're always there anyway, the bags.
Oh, go on.
But no, it was a fantastic evening, wasn't it? I just, I knew after about 5 or 10 minutes that we were so focused on the match. I haven't seen us like that for a little while. We were really prepared properly, and we just took the sting out the Mexican side. We played some great football, and of course, Jude Bellingham got his goals as normal, and Harry got his penalty as normal, and it was just not only a great game and a great result, it's just lit the nation up, really, I think, now.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Well, Sir Keir Starmer, he's off again, last day in the job, and he's off to Kyiv.
Yes, Sir Keir Starmer heads to Ukraine after, it's his 50th foreign trip now as Prime Minister to meet President Zelensky, insisting that Britain's support for Ukraine remains cast iron.
But there are reports linking him to a future NATO role, and some critics are questioning whether he's spending too much time on the world stage and not enough at home. But is he really after a cushy new diplomatic job?
Well, joining us now is our political correspondent, Olivia Utley. Because, Olivia, tomorrow he stops being leader of the Labour Party, but then on Monday he stops being Prime Minister of the United Kingdom. Is this one final junket of a Prime Ministership that has been defined, perhaps more than any other, by international trips?
Well, that's a very good question. It does feel like a bit of a last hurrah for Keir Starmer. He doubled down in a recent interview, in his sort of outgoing interview with the BBC, on the amount of time he spent abroad, saying that Andy Burnham is going to have to spend just as much time, if not more time, on foreign affairs because it is so integral to any premiership at the moment. Why he's gone on this particular trip? Is it because this is what he wants to be remembered for? Perhaps it's as simple as that. Or is it that he likes the idea of some sort of diplomatic job? I thought it was interesting in Lobby yesterday. The Prime Minister said that this was the end of his political career. We asked exactly what that meant, and the Prime Minister's spokesperson said, well, it's the end of his role as Prime Minister and leader of the Labour Party. So perhaps not completely the end of his political career. What sort of diplomatic job could he get? Something senior in NATO seems quite unlikely. Defence spending hasn't really gone up under Keir Starmer, and actually Keir Starmer's Defence Secretary resigned recently, John Healey, because not enough was being spent on defence. So it doesn't look likely that NATO would put him into some sort of cushy position. Perhaps we're all being a little bit too cynical here. It does sound as though Keir Starmer and Zelensky have a very good relationship. They sat down in the garden for 45 minutes, sort of chatting away together. it actually does look as though, from what we're seeing out of the press conference, that the two men quite like each other. Zelensky perhaps needs some reassurance that Europe is still behind him because he's losing both Keir Starmer and then Emmanuel Macron
But OK,
next
if it's
year.
not a cushy job that he's necessarily after, is it that he's so unpopular domestically that he couldn't really go and do a sort of final thing anywhere else? I'm trying to picture him, like, on a building site or with some children at a school or perhaps in a hospital or whatever. And this is just a bit easier for him, maybe, in some ways.
Well, exactly.
Doesn't have to deal with the public.
He hasn't always gone down that well on school trips. I remember that trip where he started doing the 6-7 movement along with the kids. The teacher obviously found that very annoying and disruptive and gave him a little ticking off. So you could be right that chatting to Zelensky in a garden in Kyiv is a little bit easier than doing anything here domestically. I think he does want to show himself as a bit of a statesman, and perhaps in the future he would like some sort of diplomatic job. At the moment, all he's saying is that he's going to be spending more time with his family. He's not going to be giving unasked for advice to his successor, Andy Burnham. I think he's going to keep his powder dry for a bit, stay quiet, but I think by doing this Ukraine trip, he is probably trying to keep that diplomatic door open.
I think you might be right, Olivia.
Well, we'll keep an eye on that one. Stranger things have happened. Gordon Brown got a UN role, I think, didn't he? Anyway, lots more still to come on Good Afternoon Britain. No, actually, there isn't anything more to come on Good Afternoon Britain.
You silly
It's the end of the show.
numbnut.
I was hoping there'd be more to come, but I'm afraid that's it
Always
from
on
us.
the ball, eh?
Oh, goodness
Always on the
me.
ball.
Well, I'll tell you who's up next, though. It's Martin Daubney after your weather.
Expect warm spells with the odd rude interruption. Box Boilers sponsors the weather on GB News.
Hi there and welcome to the latest update from the Met Office for GB News. It is another beautiful summer's day across the UK today. Dry and sunny, very warm if not hot in many places. There is a fresh breeze in the east and that's going to bring progressively cooler conditions from the North Sea over the next few days. It's also bringing some patchy cloud, mostly through the afternoon restricted to coastal parts of northern and eastern Scotland, eastern England. But overnight that tends to creep back inland, always a chance of a shower.